Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Monday, June 22nd. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and welcome back to another week of analyzing the global capital equity markets. We have so much to talk about based on what happened over the weekend. We've got Iran updates. We've got semiconductor updates. We've got software updates. This week in general, there is not a ton of catalysts outside of Micron earnings. I mean, there's a couple other things to talk about, but Micron earnings obviously is going to be the big one. And it is really the final couple days left we have of June. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, about 7 days left. So about a week left of trading in June before we get into July. And so this is how we're going to be ending out the, I guess you could call it, first month of the June, July, August summer stretch. And it's going to be very exciting to see how we ended out. This month has been a relatively good month in most sectors. Some sectors hasn't been that well, but the Iran MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, has been enough to get oil prices to come down. Even though the updates this morning aren't like the best updates in the world, they are enough, as you can see right here on the screen, to get oil down another 2%, 74.60, below 75, which is very nice to see. And to continue allowing the S&P to go higher pre-markets. We are not at all-time highs. We did have a little bit of a hiccup after Kevin Warsh's first Fed meeting, which I wouldn't necessarily blame on Kevin Warsh, but the market nonetheless took a little bit of a tumble. We got a bunch of different updates on a variety of different stocks. SpaceX down 3% in the pre-market. Robinhood with some dilution. Micron up 4.5%. SK Hynix is now the largest company in South Korea, overtaking Samsung. That is very bullish for the memory names. You also got some other memory updates, which is why Micron's doing well. But this is going to be an interesting week because last week we had quad witching, we had the FOMC, we had just so many different variables corresponding and compounding to get to the inevitable Iran deal, which is still not there, but it's like kind of there. And I think this week the market's going to have to digest all that news and also tell us, do we want to go higher or lower based on a lot of those variables that we had to deal with last week. We did have the draft over the weekend. I hope people enjoyed it. We'll talk about some of my picks later in the portfolio. I thought it was a really fun draft. I thought it was a good time. I think everyone's portfolio, to be honest, is like pretty decent. And, the fun of everyone's portfolio is that over the next year, we'll all be able to compare it. It was me, Jason, Matt, Tanner, Steve, and Chris. And, to be honest, all of us went pretty high beta heavy. Very few picks were picked that would survive if AI was fake. So, we are all on the train with everybody else for AI to be very real. And so we'll talk more about that draft later as well. Yeah, Chels, thanks for that. The stockcombine.com. It'll eventually be stockdraft.com because we have the link, but you can click on that. You can see everyone's portfolios. We'll talk more about it later, but that should have everything there as well. Okay, we got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Tons to discuss. The Singapore meetup is this week as well. So this week's going to be a little bit of an interesting week, just to let everybody know. Talked about it last week, but I will be here Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, I will not be here. So I will be missing Micron earnings, and I will not be here Thursday. Likely Friday, we will have a market open. So Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to be gone. We'll be in the air. Friday, we'll be back for the market open. And then the week after that, we'll have a couple market opens, no market closes. So this will be the start. This week will be the start of the 2 weeks where I'll be gone. July 6th, I will be back officially. And really, there's not a ton of events going on in the first week of July. I mean, after Micron earnings, we're pretty much done. And we'll still have market opens. But yeah, starting Wednesday, I will not be here. I'll be back on Friday. Then we'll be back Monday, Tuesday the next week. And then we'll be back July 6th. So we're here. We got a lot to discuss. Looking forward to the Singapore meetup. If anyone still wants to go, we have a couple tickets left. I will put that link right there in the chat if you are in Singapore. Very, very excited to travel internationally and to see everybody. Singapore is apparently a top 5 channel for, or a top 5 country for the channel. So the amount of people that have watched from Singapore has been pretty loyal for the past 4 years. And so I'm very, very excited to meet everybody and have a discussion. But we'll be back by July 6th, and we'll still have a market open even when I'm gone for at least 4 or 5 days. And given, we're done with earnings season, we're done with the majority of the crazy news we have to deal with. I don't think there's anything going to be too crazy over the next couple of weeks. And July 6th, we'll be back and running and do what we got to do. All right, so let's get started. Tom, that's funny. Have you applied for the visa? For those that were here in 2024, I had to delay my India trip because I did not apply for the visa. Thankfully, I got it in like 10 hours, but Singapore doesn't need a visa. So no, did not need to apply to a visa. India apparently did, and I kind of forgot about it. So India trip was delayed by a day, but thank you for checking. I appreciate that. All right. Let's get started. Let's get into it. Again, thank you everybody for being here. Lots of stuff to discuss. I think we'll get started with Iran. That is kind of the big thing that we've got going on over the weekend. So there was a lot of different things that happened over the weekend. At first, JD Vance and the Iranian delegation went to Switzerland. Iran walked out because of Israel attacking Lebanon again over the weekend. And Iran essentially was upset that, Israel is attacking Lebanon. You can see in this video right here, which is kind of crazy, that as JD's talking to the Pakistani PM, the Iranian delegation refuses to take a photo with him at the summit because they're upset about Israel and Lebanon. So at that moment, people thought the talks were off. Then the Qatari media came in and said, no, the talks are still on. We're going to be having a good discussion. This is a photo right here of Jared Kushner, JD Vance, and the Qatari delegation speaker having a discussion. The amount of captions on this have been absolutely hilarious. The best caption I saw was, and make sure you add the SanDisk 2500-73 call strikes as well. So this is a photo that's going to be memed up for a long time. But they tried to spin it and say, no, the Iranians didn't leave. They were upset for a little bit, but we came back and we started discussing. And then finally, we got an update from JD Vance this morning. And I'll let you guys decide what you think about the progress of this deal. But here is what he said before leaving Switzerland this morning.
And that leads me to the final thing that we wanted to accomplish, which is actually set up the process for the technical negotiations that will follow. Our teams working with the Iranians, the Qataris, and the Pakistanis made great progress yesterday. They will continue to work at the technical level with the teams here in Bergenstock. And then those technical negotiations are going to continue over the weeks and days to come. We wanted to set up a structure for that so that you could have proper political oversight. But obviously, as much as this place is very beautiful, I can't stay here for the next 60 days. I'm about to go back home to the United States. But the technical teams are going to be working with proper oversight to make sure that we're accomplishing the objectives that matter for everybody. So those are the things that we wanted to accomplish. We came here. We did exactly that. The way that I think about it is very simple. We laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We set the foundation. We haven't built the house, but we've laid a successful foundation to get to a good place for the American people. I think it's important for all of us to appreciate how much was done, but honestly, there is still a lot to do as we continue to make progress on the nuclear talks, on the economic talks, as we continue to demine the straits and ensure that that flow of traffic continues to pick back up. A lot of progress, but still some work to do, and we're very committed to doing exactly that.
Okay, so basically, he's saying we have the next 60 days to actually figure out what we're going to do. The exact quote is, we laid a very good foundation for a successful final deal. The final deal is the house. We set the foundation. We haven't built the house yet, but we set a strong foundation. So, look, unfortunately, you don't have the massive move that I think a lot of people have been waiting for. But nonetheless, I think markets are also pricing it in as, hey, even though it's not the actual deal that we want, in the next 60 days, there should be some resemblance of being able to get to that deal, some type of framework or trajectory to get to it, which is what we've been saying for the past couple of weeks, right? Like, there is a conceptual plan of a framework, unless it flips and, Lebanese attacks would make it harder to complete the deal. And so I imagine that Trump is trying to navigate that right now as well. But if that doesn't derail the entire progress of this, then oil's probably not going back to 100. The markets probably don't have to price in some elongated conflict that's going to create CPI to get to levels that it hasn't been at in 5 years, which would cause the Fed to hike. Speaking of the Fed hiking, by the way, what is going on at Bank of America? Like, what is happening at B of A and their macro analysts? Because at this point, I think they're either being extremely stubborn about their interpretation of the macro forecast going into the end of the year in the face of falling oil, which inevitably is going to lead to falling inflation, which hopefully doesn't lead to a rate hike, or they know something about the markets that all of us just are oblivious to, and Bank of America is going to call this right. They are now expecting the Fed to hike 3 times this year, shifting from their prior view of no changes. They see a 25 basis point hike in September, October, and December, taking rates to 4.5%. Remember when you can get 4.5% in a high yield savings account? They think that era is coming back by the end of the year. And they expect the first rate cut to not come in 2027, but in 2028. I don't know, dude. I feel like they've called it bearish, and the analysts at their macro house, Bank of America does really good research, by the way, on a lot of different sell side stuff. Their semiconductor research has been pretty strong. I mean, they've called the revolution in AI accurately over the past 4 years, but the macro house is different from the semi house and the tech house. And I just can't imagine a hike 3 times by the end of this year. I'll give you 1 hike, and I feel like that's even being generous, because if oil keeps coming down, you should still have the potential for that to not happen. In a pretty, conservative scenario, we get at least no hikes, but maybe no cuts. They're talking about 3 hikes. So, if that were to happen, I think that would be devastating, like completely devastating. The 75 bips coming out of nowhere would not be exciting. And I think a lot of tech would be pressured. But I also wonder, is there something underlying inflation that's more structural that they see? Because if it's just rooted in energy should be enough for this to not be that big of an issue. Nonetheless, that's the update we had over the weekend. It looks like the Iran stuff is hopefully coming to an end over the next 60 days. The market's definitely pricing it like that. If there were to be a retracement back into fighting, I just don't think that would be the optimal scenario. I don't think Trump wants that. I honestly don't think the Iranians want that, because if you actually look at the memorandum of understanding, and I haven't gone that deep into it, but there's a lot of money that's getting ready to come to Iran in the form of unfreezed assets, sanctions relief, and then companies investing in the country. And so I don't think Iran wants to just hold the entire world hostage anymore for oil when there's a chance that he actually economically vitalize the nation. And obviously Trump, wants to trade Hormuz open. So hopefully that is what resolves this situation. But what we saw over the weekend was not really meaningful progress. It was enough to be excited that this will inevitably be over, but it is not saying it is officially over. And, over the coming months, we'll hopefully get a better understanding of what exactly is going to play out. SpaceX, that's down 4%. This thing has had some troubles since it has went public, had the rally all the way up to 230. And then it's basically, if it ends red today, this will be 3 red days in a row for SpaceX as the stock starts to come back down to reality. 135 was the IPO price. 150 was the opening price on Friday, 2 weeks ago when it IPO'd. So it still has a lot of room of upside that it's already taken. And if you're holding onto the stock, you're up a lot. But obviously that 200, 220, 230 range that it touched is now starting to come down. Keel is up 10%. Did we get a deal this morning? Because I did not see that update. If we did, that would be nice. Oh, no, they're getting added to the Russell 2000. Okay, that's good. On top of the Russell 2000, the NASDAQ is getting Teradyne, CoreWeave, NASDAQ, and CoreWeave, Nebius, I meant to say, and then Rocket Lab, and I believe A Lab. So you're going to have a bunch of different inclusions today into the NASDAQ. We're going to see how much of that is priced in or how much of that is actually going to be reflected in the stock price. Nebius basically flat pre-market, CoreWeave up a little bit, A Lab up about 1%, Teradyne up 2.24, S&P up 0.12. Rocket Lab's actually down 2% along with Space. Reddit's also down 1.4%. The software names continue to go down because the semis continue to go up. At least that's kind of my interpretation of how it's happening. But you will have some more inclusions today into some of those indices as well. Okay, other updates that we got. So that was what we had with Iran, and then some of the Bank of America stuff that happened over the weekend. Robinhood, real quick, they announced a $2 billion senior debt convertible offering. I actually don't think this is too bearish. The stock is up a lot from the lows at 70. It's now at 107. It's probably something that's strategic for Robinhood to offer $2 billion of convertible notes. Now, I looked into the filings today. They're going to use $300 million of the $2 billion to buy back stock when it does convert. And I think these convert in about 5 years. So it's not immediate dilution, but it's the potential of dilution. And there's a significant premium on the share price today versus what the shares convert at. So theoretically, although shareholders will be diluted whenever the $2 billion converts, it will be diluted at a much higher price, which should be more strategic for investors, especially, if the stock is appreciated over time. They also disclosed some month-to-date metrics for June. Equity notional trading volumes, it's only 22 days into June, so we still have a week left. $269 billion.
Options, 217 million. Event contracts, 3.1 billion. It's likely going to be an all-time high for event contracts, with the World Cup being a catalyst. Options and equities, I don't know if they get to all-time highs, but it looks like if this week goes well, they'll be close to all-time highs. And so June will be, a relatively strong month for Robinhood, and hopefully that gives us a very good Q2. But yeah, the $2 billion in convertible debt to me makes sense. A lot of companies have diluted as their stocks have gone up, and Robinhood stock was stuck for the majority of the year. So the fact that the stock is up right now, this is the time to dilute. Also, it kind of makes me think they're going to do an acquisition. I don't know what the acquisition is going to be, but Robinhood has done many, many acquisitions over the past couple of years, and a lot of them have been very strategic. I think maybe that's why they had so much insider buying. Maybe there's a world in which there's a real acquisition coming that we're not expecting, and that acquisition could be very effective for the overall health of the business. Is Micron pushing 1,200? Micron is very close to pushing 1,200. Okay, so why are the memory stocks up? Well, let's talk about it. Number one, SK Hynix hit an all-time high yesterday, and that is helping all of the memory names. It is officially overtaken South Korea as the most valuable listed company in South Korea. Shares are up 350% for the year. Number two, DRAM and HBM prices are expected to increase again. There's a couple of sell-side analysts that came out with new price targets on Micron in that $1,500 to $1,600 range. And in their notes, they mentioned once again that we expect memory prices to go up in 2027. And as a result of that, if memory is still constrained and then the prices are going up, that's going to help. Also, we just got a new update with Micron. Micron and Anthropic enter memory storage supply pact. That'll do it. That'll probably do it. The details, multi-year agreement. Micron provides HBM, DRAM, and SSD for Anthropic's AI compute. Expansion, joint optimization for memory and storage for AI workloads, targeting better performance, energy efficiency, and token economics. Micron is investing in Anthropic's Series H funding round. Okay, I feel like they already did that, but they're just announcing it for the first time. So Micron is now an investor in Anthropic. Makes sense. Anthropic's going to be buying a lot of memory. Micron is already deploying Claude internally across engineering, manufacturing, and enterprise ops. Okay, so this announcement looks a little bit like this announcement does not seem like the biggest deal in the world. It seems like a very cookie cutter partnership that a company that's supplying another company with a lot of important infrastructure is going to partner with them and have a multi-year supply agreement. I mean, this kind of just sounds like Anthropic's buying more product from Micron, which they've been doing for the past 5 years, but they're trying to signal it as a strategic AI infrastructure partnership, which it obviously is because Micron and memory is supply constrained. So it makes sense. Definitely going to get the stock to go up if you partner with with an Anthropic, and so that's probably getting the street to be more excited right there. There's the headline: Micron and Anthropic enter memory storage supply pact. To me, this just reads like Anthropic's going to be buying more memory, and they're framing it as a partnership, which they should be from a PR perspective. But at the end of the day, they're buying more memory, and Micron obviously would love to sell Anthropic a lot more memory for a long time. And the fact that they're investing in them also makes sense right here, as they continue to get more different use cases as Anthropic is now deployed across the entire organization. They've also invested in the Series H. We also have an NVIDIA partnership. NVIDIA announces Halos for Robotics, the industry's first full stack safety system for physical AI. Okay, NVIDIA right there getting a little bit of a bump, about 22 cents in the pre-market. NVIDIA announces Halos for Robotics, the industry's first full stack safety system for physical AI. They also unveiled more specs on Vera Rubin, which is going to be 7x exaflops of AI for science performance, 5 petaflops of FP64, up to 144 Rubin GPUs per rack, built with Rubin GPUs, Vera CPUs, NVLink C2C, plus Bluefield 4 DPUs. I feel like this NVIDIA announcement is not really that interesting. The specs on Vera Rubin have been known for a very long time, unless there's something more specific they're putting out. But I feel like I knew these numbers before. And again, the Micron Anthropic partnership, they're going to pump it up, but it's not sounding like some crazy partnership. It just sounds like a supplier providing supply to one of their biggest customers. Micron right there, $11.93. It feels like this is a pump and dump headline. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's going to be a pump and dump headline, but it's definitely a headline that is not groundbreaking, to say the least. But it is good for Anthropic to obviously have a partnership with their biggest suppliers. The thing about the reason, the actual takeaway you can get from this is it looks like, and quite frankly, this can be interpreted as, potentially bearish NVIDIA, even though it's not, but this is how it can be interpreted. It looks like Anthropic is ready to build their own chips. They've talked about it in the past. They obviously have very specific custom workloads. A lot of their chips have been trained on Trainium and TPUs already outside of just general purpose GPUs. And so if they want to set up partnerships with some of the key suppliers that are important to build those GPUs, they're not going to stop buying from NVIDIA. But it looks like they do want to build their own custom ASICs for their particular AI workloads. And if you're going to do that, you need to go directly to the source and have agreements with the vendors, which just means there's going to be more stress on Micron to provide that supply for something like an Anthropic, which is obviously going to create pressure on prices and continue to allow them to have that pricing power, which is obviously good for the memory trade. Micron right there, 1192, as that's up 5% in the pre-market as well. SMCI I saw was up in the morning. I don't know why, up 7.2%. Let me see if I can get the headline right there, but SMCI was indeed green. A lot of the semis, quite frankly, are green today. The software names continue to be down. SMCI got upgraded by GF Securities. Interesting. GF Securities upgrades SMCI on SpaceX aggressive expansion plans as a neocloud. Well, that's true. I forgot. SpaceX and SMCI, I mean, technically XAI and SMCI had a large partnership last year. Now it's going to be SpaceX and XAI. So according to this report, their argument is SpaceX is going to be aggressively expanding their neocloud business, which is going to be very strong for SMCI. I don't see a price target on it. They have upgrade to buy, but they do not have a price target on it. They're also upgraded NVIDIA and Intel today, as that's what's getting SMCI to go much higher. All right, so those are some of your headlines that we got. Anthropic and Micron partner to secure supply for memory. That's why Micron's up. NVIDIA unveils a new software stack for robotics. We got to do some more research into what Halos for robotics really means and what implications that has. They also unveiled some new Vera Rubin stats. And then you've got SMCI going higher. Also, SMCI unveiled a full data center blueprint built around NVIDIA Vera Rubin NVL4, designed to scale from single unit to gigawatt class deployments per scalable unit. That, along with that upgrade, is likely what's getting SMCI to go higher. 3278, that's up 7%. It was up 10% on Friday. All right, some semi news as soon as we start the show. Every single day, there is more and more to discuss on this AI revolution, which gets me into the stock draft right here. And I think the logic that pretty much all of us had on the stock draft. By the way, Tanner has SMCI, so this is already an early win for Mr. Tanada here, as this was his last pick with SMCI. So here are my picks. You guys can go to the stockcombine.com/draft and see all the picks. The video's on Steve's channel for those that want to watch the entire thing. NVIDIA was my first pick. AMD was my second pick. So I got NVIDIA and AMD locked up. I got GEV, which was honestly a name that I wasn't even thinking about that deeply. But then when I saw it kind of left on the board by the third round, there had already been about 12 picks. It kind of was, or actually there had been about 15 picks. It kind of made sense in the context of energy. I know GEV has gone up a lot, which was my only hesitation around it. But I mean, look, if we're going to have more energy bottlenecks, I think GEV is going to be a good one. Then you have Texas Instruments, which I'll talk about on the thesis on that later, but I think that was a little bit more of a sleeper. Rocket Lab, they left Rocket Lab up after about 40 picks. I said, okay, if you're going to leave it up there, I'm taking it. Reddit, I think that's undervalued. Google was somehow my seventh pick that was left. I mean, there was a lot of picks that went before Google. I said, okay, I think Google's going to have the best earnings growth outside of NVIDIA and the Mac 7. And the $85 billion equity dilution was eaten up pretty quickly. So it seems like the market has plenty of demand for it. Also, we're on the side of Berkshire here. So took Google. Comfort Systems, fix HVAC. The stock has run like crazy. Would not be surprised to see it go down. But to be honest, a lot of the stocks that have been picked have run like crazy. In the semiconductor space, you're kind of not going to find a stock that hasn't run like crazy. And so I think HVACs for data centers will be more important. Apple, it was up 50% for me last year. I don't know if it's going to be up 50% again, but I do think Agentic Siri will matter. Also, if CapEx slows down, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's say it does, Apple's going to be a winner. So if we go short CapEx, Apple wins. If we go long CapEx and get more agentic features, I do think if Apple executes, they win. The fact that Apple's increasing prices on consumers because the memory crunch also is part of the reason for why I think Apple can do very well. Then I had Galaxy. I didn't have any small companies here. I needed a small company below 20 billion. Galaxy is one of the better neo clouds that's out there, and it's incredibly small at 13 billion. They've got new leases getting up there. I do think the stock has room to run to 50 if all the neo clouds continue to run. So we picked Galaxy right there. SanDisk, I wasn't going to pick this, but when I really thought about it, if memory is not slowing down, SanDisk is probably going up. Micron is probably going up. We got SanDisk at 2184. It's at 2278 in the pre-market. I mean, I think this has visibility to 3,000 by the end of next year if the memory thesis stays intact. If not, then a lot of bottlenecks will collapse, and me and Matt, that are pretty much the only ones long memory, are going to take a hit. If not, we'll be okay. And then Bloom. Bloom is risky because it's run like crazy, and it is not cheap like a SanDisk, which has a forward PE of 12, or a Micron, but they are one of the only companies that has shown off fuel cell technology in a way that has actually led to meaningful progress on building out gigawatts of data centers. Oracle is their latest partnership, 2.8 gigawatts. And I think the rich get richer. I think if they continue to execute, the market realizes this energy bottleneck that we have is going to be extremely important. And I mean, the fact that Microsoft today signed a 20-year agreement with Chevron for, once again, building out data centers just means that we need new creative and innovative ways. Honestly, Oklo was on my list. I didn't end up taking Oklo, but that might be a candidate for the quarterly rebalance as nuclear continues to catch a bid. We're going to need more energy, and I think investors are going to be willing to pay extreme price for that. Now, Bloom was 230 a couple weeks ago, so I think it could get back there. But if it does, I think a lot of the semis are going to fall with it, and so it's kind of semis or bust, capex or bust in the context of the broader portfolio going into the next year. And so that's why I think energy will be able to do okay. I did not get to pick Palantir. Tanner picked it. So I had the first pick, and then I had to wait 12 picks before I could get my second pick. And for some reason, Tanner decided that he loves Palantir now, and he took it as his second pick. Like I thought Palantir would be back. I thought Palantir would be there 12 picks later because Steve wasn't going to pick it. Chris wasn't going to pick it. Matt, I know he loves Palantir, but I don't think he was going to pick it that early. Jason was definitely not going to pick it. He loves Palantir as well, but he was going for more of the semis. I didn't expect Tanner to pick it, but Tanner did. And so Tanner now has it. I did take his NVIDIA as the first pick. So he got Palantir. I got NVIDIA. Matt took SoFi second round, and then I took Rocket Lab fifth round. So we all kind of got each other's, babies, as I call them. Palantir is my baby. SoFi is his. Rocket Lab is Matt's. But that's also, part of the draft itself. SMCI right there, 9%, as that's getting up a little bit more right there in the pre-market. Yeah, Tanner saying I got SoFi taken from me. I feel like Tanner took Palantir because SoFi was taken from him. And then when Palantir was taken from me, I was like, screw it, I got to take Rocket Lab from Matt. So we all kind of went back at each other. If Matt had not taken SoFi, Tanner would have been able to take SoFi. I would have been able to take Palantir. And then Matt probably would have gotten Rocket Lab. But Matt took SoFi and then started the whole thing. So overall, look, it was really fun. It was really exciting. It'll be fun to follow this across the entire year. We will have quarterly rebalances. We will have potential trades. And, honestly, someone asked, is this fantasy football? And I was like, yeah, it's fantasy football for nerds. And we're all a bunch of nerds, simulating hypothetical portfolios. I kind of like my portfolio. And I was thinking, maybe I take 25 grand and split it behind all my 12 stocks and just throw it into my own portfolio and see what happens a year from now. So I'll let you guys know if I do it. But I was kind of thinking, I don't hate my portfolio. I do think some of the picks I picked, I will have a chance to get at a better price. It's just, we had to pick on Sunday and we had to use Thursday's closing price and everything pumped on Thursday. So I think we'll get an opportunity to get Bloom lower than 330 or SanDisk potentially lower than 2100. I mean, Jason picked Nebius at 286. Is there an opportunity to get Nebius maybe at 260 again? I think those opportunities will come, but nonetheless, we're going to have to see how it ends up playing out. And so overall, I thought it was fun. I think, Steve had a great portfolio. I love Tanner's portfolio, Microsoft, Palantir, ASML. I thought that was a great pick. Matt, I think, is strong. Micron, SoFi, Amazon, Steve, Broadcom, CoreWeave, Meta, Chris, Marvell, Iran, Hut. Chris went super NeoCloud heavy, semiconductor heavy. He did not go the software route or the boring kind of value route like you did last time that people thought, although you do have some of those value picks in there. I think you have Netflix, Salesforce, Uber. Those could be interpreted as value picks. You have Norwegian Cruise Lines, which is good for the oil prices coming down. And then Jason had a lot of these smaller semiconductor companies that he talks about all the time on Technical Tuesday. He got Qualcomm, Corning, Hub, Akamai, Global Foundries. Rivian was his last pick. No one ended up picking Tesla. It is what it is. I just think no one ended up wanting to bet on Elon from that respect over the next year. I did pick Tesla in the first draft, but I picked it at 330. I don't know if I wanted to pick it at 400, but maybe Tesla goes to 500 and it would have been a good pick. And then the only short in this draft was SpaceX, which Matt had, and he's already up pre-market on that. And so again, he can get rid of this in 90 days when we rebalance, or he can keep the short going. But that is the only short in the entire draft. Matt has shorted SpaceX, and time will tell to see how this one ends up fully playing out. So should be fun. It was exciting. I see someone saying ASML is richly valued. Yeah, but so is GE Vernova, right? Like a lot of these names, unfortunately, they're just up a lot. And if we were going to have any form of a meaningful draft, we had to pick the names that we believe in. It's just we ended up picking them after they've had a big run. The good thing is, though, if they fall, all of us fall together. And if they rally, there will be differences in how much each of them rally, but most likely all of them will rally together. So it's going to be about the nuances of how the market interprets a lot of these different names. And, that'll decide the portfolio performances of these over the next few months. All right, some other macro stuff that we've got to talk about. A couple different things we've got going on. So let's look at a couple charts. Retail investors, they are buying heavily into this stock market. According to Goldman Sachs, retail investors have pumped $150 billion into the largest equity ETFs over the last month, the second biggest inflow in history. This is another part of the reason why Micron, SanDisk, a lot of the memory names are running. Micron was the largest stock in the month of May, $6.5 billion from retail investors that was purchased. So you just have a ton of excitement from retail continuing to exert itself in the equity markets, which, look, one can say is scary. I think another person can say, okay, it might be a little scary, but it also means that there's liquidity out there. And that liquidity will manifest itself in some weird situations, but it also will provide a lot of support for the companies that are putting up strong earnings to continue doing better. And if they continue doing better, then that's pretty much what the market cares about more than anything else to keep the show going. And so it just doesn't seem like it's slowing down. Another thing that could be seeming scary, but nonetheless is part of the reason why the show continues to keep continuing is margin debt. It was up $112 billion in May. This is a record monthly increase of people borrowing money to buy equities. It's up 54% over the last 12 months. This is only the United States. South Korea and China have a whole different issue, but they're basically at all-time highs. South Korea is at almost $1 trillion as well. South Korea is, I think, at like 300 billion, and then China passed 400 billion 2 months ago. So you've got the entire world taking on debt to buy equities, but obviously it's working because equities keep going up. This is also the second consecutive monthly increase totaling 195 billion. Real margin debt has now grown 550% since 97, following and outpacing the S&P 500's gain of 355%, which is crazy because the amount of FINRA margin debt growth is outpacing the S&P's growth by 200%, but it also means there's a lot of alpha to find in the midst of that, which is why people are going on margin. I mean, people are not borrowing money to just buy the S&P. They're borrowing money to buy Micron, right? To buy NVIDIA, to buy those companies that have explosive growth. And if you borrow at, Robinhood gives you margin at like 5%, but if you borrow from Schwab or Fidelity at 7, 8, even 10%, and your stocks are going up 150%, it's a good deal as long as those stocks keep going up. And so, yes, could this be a little scary? Sure, if things flip. But it also is part of the reason why things are not flipping as easily, because there's plenty of money that's out there every time you get a dip for markets to be supported. And so there's a way to interpret the margin debt as positive, as long as the dip doesn't continue dipping, because there's always money out there to keep buying the dip, versus negative just because, the sheer amount of money that's out there in the context of margin, which means there's just a lot more money that's out there. On top of that, you had a headline today from Bloomberg that I thought was really interesting. South Korea's top financial regulators told Bloomberg they regret not blocking single stock leveraged ETFs tracking Samsung and SK Hynix. The 16 ETFs have grown from 3 billion at launch to 9.1 billion within a month because they launched in late May. Retail investors hold 92% of $9.1 billion of single stock ETFs that are specifically tied, leveraged to Samsung and SK Hynix. Goldman estimates a 5% swing in Korean stocks. 5%, which one could argue is relatively normal, could trigger 4.7 billion of option dealing rebalancing flows, equal to about 1/8 of normal daily share turnover. Basically, Samsung and SK Hynix cannot go down. And if they do, people just need to make sure they can stay solvent, because obviously if there's a prolonged downturn, those names could get hit. So I think the story of the past couple of weeks has been primarily the semis continue to run, and the more people that get exposure to semis, the more people start to participate more deeply in the elements of this bull market. TSM right there, that's up another 3%. Steve has that in his draft, and that's hitting all-time highs in the pre-market. It'll probably open at around 2.6 trillion. And the more software continues to drop as semis continue to go higher. Now, Shopify down 2%, ServiceNow back into the low 90s, Palantir trying to go below 125, Microsoft once again at 376 pre-market. It obviously doesn't feel like it makes sense, but we've been saying that for the better part of a couple months now. I think at some point, people have just said, screw software. I am joining the trend, and I am moving on from the losers that are not working. I think realistically, that's as Micron passes 1,200 right there, but on the partnership with Anthropic for those that are just joining. I think realistically, the software names will have the momentum coming back to them. It's just not right now. It's been 2 weeks since that flip when the software stocks pumped like crazy. Salesforce was at 200. Then you had Adobe earnings. Then you had Fable 5 come out, which I don't even think is bearish for software. Then you had articles of token costs coming down, which is really bullish for software. And the market doesn't care. The market, once again, wants to bet on the picks and shovels that are making this AI revolution possible. And quite frankly, if that's what the market's going to do, then that's what the market's going to do. I mean, there's no point in arguing against it. I do think the market's likely wrong about software, which means these are incredible stocks at great opportunities. But I think the majority of people have agreed they want to buy things that are going up in the trend, even if they think those names are a bit expensive, like Marvell right here up 1%. Marvell got hit pretty hard on that quad witching rebalance in the last couple minutes of the day on Thursday. It was at 330, dropped all the way to 314. So that type of volatility you're not going to get as easily in the software names, but this thing could go back to 330, which is why people are probably going to buy the dip, and that's going to do way better than buying a Salesforce at 165, at least in the short term. Hala says Micron earnings in 2 days could be a top. Okay, so let's do a poll on that. I personally think Micron is going to have such an explosive earnings. And as much as I think that could be priced in or this, people could sell, I kind of think Micron's going to explode on earnings. Unfortunately, I will not be there. Micron earnings pump or dump. Micron earnings is what time? 4 p.m. on June 24th? Yeah, so I'll be in an airplane. If I have good Starlink, then I'll be able to check out what happens there. I think it's going to pump, dude. At the end of the day, I'm just coming to the conclusion that if we're going to have a supply constraint on memory, and unless something messes, Kioxia in Japan is one of their largest memory companies that has started to get re-rated as more analysts come out and say, look, we need memory from everywhere. This is one of the best Japanese memory companies. Penguin Solutions, that one's up. This one plays a role at the intersection of memory as well. That's up 13% of the pre-market. It just feels like the constraint on memory and the demand for memory, given the world of where we are going to, which is agents working 24/7 for you and them needing a lot more context. Unless something messes up the pricing power and the supply-demand imbalance, which unless we get a lot of new supply, I don't know if that's going to happen as easily. Feels like memory is going up, along with the fact of the actual stocks not trading at expensive valuations, right? Micron is not even trading at 15 times forward earnings. Now, there was a headline last night about Chinese memory flooding the market. I've seen this headline, I think, like 7 times over the past couple of weeks, and it's never really materialized. So from the Wall Street Journal, there have been reports since February that HP, Dell, and others have been evaluating Chinese memory, but it seems like they still haven't made a decision. Could we get a black swan where some type of Chinese memory that's just as effective as the DRAM and HBM coming out from SanDisk and Micron floods the market and that decreases pricing power? Maybe, but it seems like that's so far away from becoming a reality or having the supply chains necessary to have that type of an impact that it doesn't feel like that's a bear case. So think memory's going higher. Maybe the shortage is priced in, but if not, and Micron, which is going to be close to 50% of the earnings growth for the S&P 500 this year, which is kind of crazy, but nonetheless, that's what's happening. That stock's probably going to deserve a premium. And if it does, then it's going to be very exciting to see where Micron goes and where it takes the memory names with it. I think the bigger question that I got over the weekend was, are we going to get the summer slump? And, we did have Tom Lee come out on Thursday saying he thinks margin debt is too high. He thinks the Fed is going to be tested. And there was another reason he had for why we would get a 15 to 20% bear market. I'm forgetting the third reason. But essentially, his argument is we need to take a breather and consolidate all the gains that we've had. And if we don't need to take that breather and it, used to have a wall of worry that we can climb, then maybe markets go up. into the summer as we've continued to see throughout June. And this is what Morgan Stanley said this morning, as they feel the earnings-driven rally will continue.
The tech story, it's been the AI-related CapEx boom that we're seeing. But what's interesting and what's important for that bull case to play out is to see a broadening. And there are expectations that 8 of the 11 sectors in the S&P are going to deliver double-digit earnings growth. So I think if that continues, if we see that broadening, that's what gets us to the upside. The thing that would make us more nervous, one would be a slowdown in the CapEx story, but we don't see that happening. The bigger risk would be if all of a sudden it wasn't the fundamentals, but rather optimism, exuberance, animal spirits creeping in. That would make us nervous. If multiples became a bigger part of the growth story rather than earnings, then we'd probably get a little bit more concerned.
You know, you hear.
By the way, I need a bow tie. I need a freaking bow tie. That bow tie is epic. I need to start wearing suits with a bow tie. We have to do it one day. So to Morgan Stanley's point, multiple expansion has been the result of earnings growth. It's not been the result of exuberance. And you know, it might seem like like exuberance is definitely there, which I'm not saying it's not. But man, it also feels like the earnings estimates that continue to go higher is part of the reason for why the multiples have been expanding. And that's why you're seeing a lot of excitement in the equity markets, which is not necessarily slowing down as easily. On top of that, you're getting deals with companies that have not been doing that well. Getty Images had a deal with OpenAI. GETY is the ticker. I think it's up a lot in the pre-market. It is up 134% in the pre-market. The stock was worth $100 million yesterday. It is now worth $234 million because of a multi-year agreement with OpenAI that will bring Getty Images licensed content and libraries into search and discovery functions within ChatGPT, which I think is very interesting because, you know, the idea of AI images means you might not have a necessity for Getty Images as much as you needed before, but there's a lot of licensed images that Getty has for celebrities and all these different high-profile people that their photographers have taken over the course of years. And if that could be interpreted into OpenAI, I don't know exactly what the likeliness of those images and the policy around that will be. But the point is there is a use case for it now with these models. I think we're going to see more of these media companies, these content companies find use cases with the models. The models have raised a lot of money to be able to spend on these companies, and these companies potentially get a second life. So is this exuberant that Getty Images, which trades at 0.25 times sales, is up 133% pre-market? Probably a bit of an exaggerated move. But if that partnership with OpenAI leads to significant earnings for Getty over the next year, one could argue that their prices could potentially go higher. And I think that's been the story of this entire bull market. There's a catalyst for earnings, which is causing the momentum that we've seen across the entire stack. All right, folks, here we go. 30 seconds as we get into the market open. Thank everybody for being here. Google, right before the market opens, gets a 3% dump. I don't see the headline on Google. We'll probably find out pretty soon. That is a little aggressive on the Googs, 357. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. Deeply, deeply appreciate you joining every morning. Should be a fun week. Got a lot of exciting stuff to discuss. As always, it is Monday morning. We are live on planet Earth. So why would you mute the bell? Because it is time to wake your asses up since the stock market is now open. All right, wake your asses up. It is Monday. Let's get into it. NVIDIA opens up to 1150. That's green. I don't know why Google took that dump. It continues to dump. There's got to be a headline on Googs that I don't see right now, but as soon as we open, we took a red candle, 357. Let's see if that recovers up to 360. Galaxy, that's up 1.6%. Micron, just below 1200, but opens up 5.2% on the day, which is relatively strong for Micron. The other memory names are doing well. S&P, that opens up 0.2%. MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, Sailor bought another 530 Bitcoin this morning. That's up 3%. Or sorry, was it 500? Yeah, it's 530 Bitcoin. So they issued some more debt and convertibles along with ATM shares this morning. So MicroStrategy right there up 3.2% is Bitcoin getting a little bit of a rebound. SMCI, new partnership with SpaceX along with an upgrade from a couple analysts. That's up 7.5%. Bitcoin right there, 65,000 up from 62. Nabesis, are we getting 300 finally? Oh my, 299. I feel like it's either going to pop 300. Wow. You guys saw that, right? Right. Took it right back to 296. They're either going to let us have it, it's got to break through, or they're going to keep it below. It's done this 5 times now over the past week. Look at that, 299.86 down to 293. It is very close. Salesforce, that's down 0.5%. Elf, that's down 2%. Elf had a really good week. Nike, that's down 2%. SoFi, are we going down? SoFi is going down 2.6% on the expectations of rate hikes. Robinhood eats through that dilution. Robinhood announced $2 billion of senior convertible notes this morning. The market does not care. There you go, 109. We hit 111 the day of Kevin Warsh speaking. Then we came all the way back down to 103 on Thursday. I think the street feels that Robinhood's getting ready to do something pretty important if they're raising money. I mean, this is not a company that needs to raise money. In fact, this has been a company that's been buying back billions of dollars of shares over the past 2 years because of their financial flexibility. So the fact that they're raising money means they're probably in aggressive growth mode to expand in some capacity. We don't know what that capacity is, but you pair that with the insider buying along with the prediction markets volumes, that could be a reason why the street's ignoring the dilution right there. Google continues to fall. What's the headline on Googs? Rocket Lab also getting hit. That means SpaceX is probably getting hit. SpaceX is indeed getting hit. 176.46. That's down 4.5%. Palantir, you are down. Microsoft is down 375. This is very close to those Thursday lows. Thursday was ugly for the software names again. Looks like that is not necessarily stopping. IGV, is that down? IGV, obviously that's down 88.75. Mercado Libre, that's down 0.5%. AppLovin, that's down 3%. Cerebras up a little bit. Circle up a little bit. Apple trying to get back above 300. Snapchat down another 1%. Elf just flipped green. Was down 1%. Now it's up 1%. Rackspace, which had a great week last week, that's down about 2.3%. Intel was at 142 last night. Intel now 137. So this thing went much higher. The Apple announcement on Thursday, I think, was part of the reason why Intel caught a bid and likely continuing to get some excitement. But I don't think there was a specific headline last night for this one getting up. I don't see the Google headline, folks. I think someone just woke up and sold a bunch of Google. They did partner with Nokia this morning. Nokia expands Google Cloud partnership. Where is Nokia? That is at $13.94, up 3.3%. Again, the option flow on Nokia specifically calls every day. It's in the top 20, which is pretty incredible. Basically, agents are going to be using Google Cloud's agentic development kit on Nokia. They say they can system reduce problem solving times by 50 to 80%. It will be a full partnership integrating Gemini AI models. So good for Nokia. Nothing for Google, as that's not changed. Wow, 4% down on the Googs, $4, and we get back to Berkshire's private placement price. Palantir 125.50. SpaceX down 7%. A little ugly right here. Fluence, believe it or not, Chris Patel picked Fluence as he went CapEx heavy, just like the rest of us. Fluence Energy right there, part of the AI story. That is green. Cypher, that is up as well. Robinhood 108.73. Keel, again, wow, there you go, broke 7. Part of the excitement on Keel back at 5 and 6 is not only do they have data centers ready for Vera Rubin, not only do they have 2.8 gigawatts of power capacity, but Leopold, which is the oracle of these AI names, has built a massive position in this. So let's see, maybe we can get a real re-rating right here, 13.5%. Got an upgrade this morning as well. Keel right there as that one continues to blow past $7. Google 355. That one keeps going down. Palantir 125. Nvidia today 213. So Nvidia's green. All the other Mag 7 are red. Broadcom tried to make a run for it on Thursday, back to 403. Apple is also slightly green on the day. Nvidia's the real one that's green. Amazon loses 240. Meta loses 570 again. Tesla loses 400 again. And SpaceX loses 175. Bloom, can we get some love? Bloom is 339. Wow. Crazy, dude. This thing was 328 this morning. Nokia just broke through 14. Bloom Energy right there, almost 340. Chris did pick Iran. That is correct. I don't hate it. I think Iran's cheap. I think Iran should be an $80 stock. I mean, again, their lack of getting a deal has been kind of the biggest issue. But if you believe that that deal is coming, then I think this one re-rates. And, you know, obviously it hasn't had a move like CoreWeave and Nebius, but I don't think Chris's thesis is too crazy right there. I do have Bloom in my picks. That is correct, 340. As this one continues higher, 3.88%. Again, the theme with a lot of the semis have been you just buy the winners and continue to execute your belief that they will keep running based on them continuing to grow. And you're seeing Bloom do that right here. You're seeing Micron do that right here. SanDisk is up on the day. You're seeing that continue to move. SanDisk, wow, 2,300 of that's up 5.3%. The website for the draft doesn't have real-time tracking yet of the portfolios. I think Steve's going to be adding that in soon. So we'll be able to check it in real time. But as of now, we can't do any rankings because we don't know who's officially in first based on how these stocks are moving. Accenture, that's down another 2.4%. After that fell 20% on Thursday on missing estimates. QXO, that's down 1.3%. Intel, well, there you go, back to 140. I almost picked Intel. I didn't end up doing it because I felt like I had way too much large cap tech. Intel's a $700 billion company. I almost picked it. I really did. Like, it was on my list. I just said, you know what? I have so much semiconductor, large cap tech. Maybe I need to take a little bit of a diversified approach on some of them. But quite frankly, that has not been the strategy the whole year. The whole year has been semis or bust. And I've got a lot of semis, but Intel continues to make a move. And this one might have a date with $1 trillion. I mean, who knows? I don't think the valuation there would make much sense, but $1 trillion on Intel is the Taiwan semis of America. That might be the simple thesis, especially if they can continue growing at the level they're growing at. Robin, did we get 110? We got 110. Talk about a rebound on Hood, man. This thing was left for dead at 70. Left for dead at 70 with all the other software and fintech names. It has been the single best performer out of software and fintech in the past month. And I think I'm happy for Hood shareholders. I'm happy for my portfolio. Obviously, it's nice to see a big position rally the way that it has. Especially, because we were at these levels last year, which is not too long ago, to be honest. It was early in January. But more importantly, I think Vlad is really once again showing the velocity of him as a founder. He's proving to the market that they do not have to be tied to the narratives that the market wants to tie them to, aka crypto. And whatever he's done to get the market to believe that this is not a crypto play, Bitcoin has gone down ever since Hood was at 70, which means Hood should still be stuck at 70 as Bitcoin's below 70,000. And Robinhood has moved up 35%, which is just really exciting for the overall health of the business, because there will be many moments in the future where they are seen as a cyclical entity. And if they're able to just be like, guys, we're not cyclical. We're not tied to market cycles. We're not tied to Bitcoin, even though right now they are. But the more they diversify away from that, they don't need to be bought only in a bull market. And so I think that's exciting for Robinhood right there. Credo, that's up 12%. Wow. Credo took a hit a couple of weeks ago on earnings. This one getting a nice rebound right there. Obviously, Credo, very important company. They bought a huge photonics company for $705 million a couple of months ago. The only photonics exposure in the draft also is Tanner with Lumentum. I was thinking of taking Coherent. I just kind of felt like there's some other names that are also going to be really important. I mean, you have Jason with Corning, but photonics and co-packaged optics are still going to be an incredibly important bottleneck and probably very relevant over the coming months. Bloom trying to go for 350. DRAM continues to pump as all the memory names are green. Hive, I know a lot of you guys like Hive. It's up 15%. I don't have a headline on Hive, but I would imagine something right there is getting the street to be excited about it. Hive right there, that's up 7.3. All the Bitcoin miners turn into data center plays are actually pumping. Keel's up 12, Hive's up 16. Is CleanSpark up today? CleanSpark is up 4. IWM small caps, new all-time high. I mean, how are we going to get a 20% drawdown, and how are we going to get 3 rate hikes, as Bank of America is saying this morning, when small caps, which do not benefit during like the rate hiking cycle, are hitting all-time highs? That's the market telling you we don't think we're getting a rate hike. You would not see small caps get the move that they're getting. Bird, is that moving up? That is up 13% as well. This is now Smart Bird. They changed from Allbirds to Smart Bird. This was the shoe company that turned into a GPU licensing play. They raised another $50 million of convertible debt. That stock up 13%. It did hit 25 a couple months ago, then fell all the way back down to 3. Now it's at 6. Getty Images up 95% on the OpenAI partnership. Dell, that also moves 8%. That is part of the reason why SMCI is moving 11%. That is also why HPE, I bet, is up at least 5%. That's up 4.3%. All of your server rack plays continue to catch a bid. SpaceX getting demolished here. 171. Matt's short, I think, is up almost 12% already. Another dollar, this thing falls below the 170s for the first time since the IPO day, which would be kind of crazy. Rock Lab at the same time also getting hit. That is down 5%. ASTS, I would imagine, is getting hit. That is also down 5% as well. Mick, can you talk about QXO? So this is a thesis. This is a stock that Steve initially kind of explained the thesis to us on as a home builder. Tanner took this, I believe, as a rate cutting play. So as rates come down, you should have more home building activities. Brad Jacobs, legendary investor and CEO, founder extraordinaire. I like QXO. I think it is going to need the rate cut narrative to change, just like SoFi, or I guess I should say the rate hike narrative to change. Operationally, I think it's very sound. I mean, the multiple is relatively cheap, trades at 14 times earnings or 1 time sales. Like, it's not that expensive. But in this market right now, semis are catching the bid, and rate cuts, until they get priced in, I don't think are going to really help your Lennars, your Open Doors, et cetera. They just need more of that excitement. Same thing with QXO. QXO almost got up to $22 a couple of months ago when, it seemed obvious that rates were coming down. And then you had oil spike because of the Iran war, inflation went up, and then it looked like rates were going up. And that's why QXO, SoFi, Lennar, Open Door, they've all been stuck for the past couple of weeks. Why is Google still going down? What is going on with Google? By the way, the headline on Hive, Columbia University researchers used Hive's digital GPU cluster remotely for AI training with a surprising result. They found A40 GPUs matched H100 performance in LLM pre-training, and the research was submitted to Neural IPS, one of the AI's top academic conferences in the country. Okay, that's their headline on Hive. Looks like their GPU cluster had a really positive effect at Columbia University, and that alone is why the stock is up 20% right here. As that continues to go green. Google's probably diluting right now. I feel, if I'm not wrong, Google already released the 85 billion of shares 2 weeks ago. I'll try to see if I can confirm that. But from my understanding, Berkshire already bought their shares, and then they released the rest a couple weeks ago, and it was done. Maybe that's wrong, and maybe they're releasing it right now. That could be part of the reason. Dell 435 right there. But yeah, I mean, that would make a lot of sense for why Google is getting hit. ARM, that goes down 4%. Marvell, they took her down in a nasty, dude, it was like 2 minutes until the market closed on Friday. And they took Marvell from 329 to 313. Now it's at 302. So that one going down about 2.6%. Meta right there, 573. And then Netflix, that one also continues to get a hit. Robinhood Legend is down. Robinhood Banking was down last week as well. Hood right there, 109.86. As that's trying to get into the 110. I thought we were going red after the deal news. Seems like the stock market is immortal and going green. Yeah, I mean, last week was important as Keel just continues to take off. Look at that, 16%. There is a Keel army that is being formed. We talked about it last week. The Keel cult is developing, and I don't know. I like it. I like the stock. I think it can make a move. I don't know how quickly this thing can get re-rated, but they get one data center deal, I think it's off to the races. And so the question is, do they get that deal? And Amazon looks like the target based on the locations of their data centers, but we're gonna have to see them actually get that deal. Same with the other neoclouds. Applied Digital, once they got that deal with CoreWeave, things went up. Like, you get a deal, you start to get re-rated. But last week showed me that even with Warsh being not Warsh being hawkish, but as the Fed being as hawkish as they were, Warsh tried to be as dovish as he could. The market dropped for a day and then went back up. And when I mean a day, a couple hours, but by the after hours on Wednesday after FOMC, the market was back up. Like, you talk about immortality of the market. Whenever people start saying stuff like that, people start to think, okay, we're getting ready for a top. Everyone thinks the market just keeps going up and up and up, which is a fair point. But once again, if the earnings in Q2 continue to go up and up and up, I just think you have a lot of people accepting defeat, that we are in a revolution that we've never seen before. And it makes more sense to be part of that, even if you buy a little too high and get ready to buy the dip versus be on the sidelines. And I think that's happening on an institutional level more than it's happening on a retail level, because retail has been buying every single dip that they've got their hands onto. Broadcom going below 400 as that continues to go a bit lower as well. IGV getting a little bit of a rebound. AMD, the guys let me take NVIDIA and AMD. I did not expect to have NVIDIA and AMD after 14 picks. So AMD was my second pick, but it took a lot of picks to get there, right? Because I didn't pick first and second. I picked first and then 12th. So I thought AMD would be gone by the second round, and it was left for me. Both of them are large caps. NVIDIA, obviously the larger one, but I think AMD has a date with $1 trillion. I think it's kind of inevitable. 545 right there. And, you know, if that happens this year, then obviously that would be very beneficial for AMD. Western Digital going a little red. Redwire also going down about 6%. Robinhood Ventures, that's down 4G. Veranova, we have that in the draft as well. That's up 1.5. CrowdStrike trying to get back to 700. The cybersecurity names have been the most resilient in the face of the IGV sell-off, and they should be, even though, you know, CrowdStrike's earnings were not good, to be honest, and Palo Alto had a better earnings. But it also took a pretty big dip, went from 800 to 640, now back to 700, probably buyers stepping in. Amcor continues to do well. That's up 3.6%. And then Zeta, that is getting a 1.5% move to the upside as well. SpaceX, it is not touching below 170 yet, but it looks like it wants to. Nebius, they took it to 298, then took it right back down to 288 on the day right here. Mara, all of your Bitcoin miners turned AI plays are catching a bid. Mara, Keel, Hive, CleanSpark, all of them. As Mara right there, that's up 10%. Micron, red candle from 1200. AMD kind of just exploded on that green candle. Someone just bought a lot of it right there, 550. As that continues to go green. Semis are now 18.8% of the S&P 500. This is double the amount it was in the dot-com bubble. So based on the price to sales ratios of the semiconductor stocks, either the industry has become less cyclical or it is a sign of exuberance as semi multiples have exploded given margins on the semi names have hit all-time highs. And I think that's also what the market is trying to debate right now. You know, is it not cyclical anymore or is it exuberance? When you hear a stat like semi concentration, the S&P is double what it was in the dot-com bubble. And obviously we saw what happened in the dot-com bubble. People start to think it's exuberance. But once again, the earnings growth, the margin expansion, and the supply constraints for a CapEx build out that is going to be pretty aggressive, you know, that's your argument for why it's not cyclical. And that's your argument for why it is very justified to see the moves that we've been seeing right here. SpaceX 170.4, Robinhood back to 111. Open Door getting hit, ASTS down 4, and then SMCI, Dell, HP, all of those continuing to go green as Google, if I don't have a headline for it, I'm going to assume they're diluting right now, although I thought they had already issued the shares. But if they didn't, then that's probably why Google is is going red. Yeah, where is Riot? That should be up today as well. Yeah, this is interesting. Literally, I think every single Bitcoin. Do I have a chart for Bitcoin miners? Let's make one right now. I think I had one a while ago. Bitcoin AI play. So let's add all of them here. So we've got Keel, we've got Hut, we've got Riot, we've got Mara, we've got CleanSpark. What are the other ones? Admit the Iran deal went bust. How are we green? It didn't go bust. It just didn't lead to a actual deal. But as Vance said this morning in Switzerland, it led to a conceptual framework for negotiators to talk for the next 60 days to get to a deal. Galaxy, let's put that in there. And that is why I think oil is down in the market. Once again, is saying, you know what? As long as these guys figure it out, then we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's probably why. Wi-Fi, that's correct. White fiber. Did APLD used to be a Bitcoin miner? I don't know that, but let's put that in there as well. All of them are green today. All of them. BTDR, yup, BitDeer. Yeah, that's I think that's less of a catalyst for each of them. Galaxy's up, Keel is up, Marathon is up. I think that's the street potentially just loading up on some of the Bitcoin plays that turned into AI HPC plays as they're trying to get more exposure to the overall space. American Airlines, that's up. PayPal, that's up a little bit. Snapchat flips green. S&P, we're almost back to 750. We are almost back to 750. We were here on Wednesday, fell all the way down to 738. Qualcomm trying to break green again. ASML slightly flat, and then Broadcom back above 400. As we're seeing the market try to get right back to those levels. T1 Energy has been interesting. I've been looking into this one a little bit more. It is down from that 1250 range. It hit a couple of weeks ago. Leopold does own a lot of this one as well. Solar play in the energy space. They had some pretty, in my opinion, dumb short reports that came out over the past 2 weeks. I think T1's interesting. I've not taken a position yet, but I do think it's interesting, and I'm looking a bit deeper into them. It looks like this one can break through $10 right there. Wow, AMD 556. As that one's just moving higher. SpaceX did touch 170 on the dot. It looks like it wants to go below 170. You guys are saying Robinhood's down. I have not opened it yet today. It's working so far for me as I'm just playing with it. But banking was down last week. If anything, it probably means a lot of people are checking Hood right now. And obviously they need to be reliable, but that could be part of the reason. 111. Are we going to 120, folks? Are we going back to January prices on Hoodie, up 3.2%? It's not that far away. $9 for Hood is like a really good day. So I feel like that could be on the cards if this momentum continues. Fluence, that's up 4% as well. As that continues to go green. Wow, a lot of you guys complain about Hood. Okay, I mean, there must be a ton of traffic coming in today, and that's what's probably hurting them. Reddit, that flips green as well. Some of your software names, once again, trying to flip green. 178 right there on Reddit. As that is going higher. Why is CoreWeave down? Well, they do get into the NASDAQ today, but a lot of times the index inclusion day is not as exciting as the announcement of the index inclusion. So I don't know if the forced buying today on a CoreWeave necessarily spikes it up, but probably towards the end of the day, we'll have a better understanding of it. 116.59. It's had a massive run over the past 2 weeks, right? So can't be too upset. Although Nebius is green. So it is diverging a little bit from Nebius. Wow, AMD. What's all-time highs? 559.20. Oh, no, we just hit all-time highs today. 559.20. We just hit it. 900 billion officially for AMD. 908 billion on Mr. AMD. This is pretty spectacular as these semiconductor names continue. Why is Rocket Lab down as well? I think the space names are taking the breather that a lot of people thought they would take probably a month ago. It took the SpaceX IPO. Look, if there was a question on if the SpaceX IPO was going to be a sell the news for space names or a rip for space names, it ended up being a sell the news instead of a buy the rip. It's just, I mean, like literally, I don't know how anyone could argue that. But that also makes them a lot more attractive. ASTS at 130, a little expensive, to say the least. Rocket Lab at 150, a little expensive. Rocket Lab at 100, ASTS at 75, a lot more attractive. So, if they're going to consolidate, and we saw Rocket Lab consolidate for 5 months before it broke out. So I don't know if we're going to go through another 5-month consolidation phase, but Rocket Lab's going to be profitable soon. Neutron, you got a lot of catalysts along with just the massive TAM that SpaceX has proven. But you also might have some of that money rotating out of space as people have taken some gains. I ran that passes 60 today. Bloom 346. SanDisk 2259. As that continues to go green. I don't think we have any macro data today. Oil continues to go down, which is really good. Again, JD Vance in the morning did say that they are making progress on a deal. I know that doesn't sound like progress, but nonetheless, he did say it. And I guess the markets are interpreting that effectively. Oracle, are we above 190? Oracle's actually down. Wow, 182. As this one's going. TE, there she goes, 1014. This one, low float, has made a big move in the past. And, it went down when everything went down, which is kind of the story on all. Like Bloom went to 237 when everything went down, right? Same with SanDisk, same with Micron. Really, it's like when we see the entire market flip down, that's when the high beta names really get a hit. But then those dips get eaten up, and they've been proven to get eaten up almost 5 times in the past 2 months when we've had like at least 3 to 5% correction. I think 2 weeks ago after that jobs report spooked the market, that was the largest correction we've had in about a month, which was, I think, about 5.2% down from the top. And we've yet to revisit those highs on the S&P, but obviously the dip has been bought pretty aggressively. Marvell 308, that one getting bought up at 301, and Amazon 238. Wow, a lot of you guys are complaining about Robinhood today. Let me try buying something on Hood. I'm gonna buy a share of Keel on Hood. Let's spend $7. It's working for me. It's working. I'm not having any issues. I'm not saying other people aren't, but it's working fine for me. I would imagine they just might have server issues if it's affecting a lot more people. AMD 561. That is all-time highs. That is all-time highs on Mr. AMD. What is my draft price on this? I think it's 530. It is 537. Okay, 562. There you go. $920 billion market cap on Mr. AMD. Hubbers, thanks for the super chat. We talked about the Nokia Gemini partnership early this morning. Super bullish for Nokia. Again, Nokia, a lot of price targets here, targeting that $20, $25 range, which the thing about Nokia is it is an $80 billion company. I think people forget that. It is a very large company in terms of market cap, so it does take a little bit more. I mean, every dollar is $6 billion, right? So that is why you don't see Nokia going up and down multiple dollars a day. The partnership is bullish, but wasn't necessarily interpreted as bullish for Google, or as Google continues to get a new low for the day, they are diluting heavy. It's got to be diluting heavy or news. I don't see any news on Google, so I'm going to have to default to dilution right here, 350, 374. As that one goes down. Robin, let me check 112 resistance. We are very close to it. Did we touch it? Yeah, we touched it. There it is, 112.05. There's no more resistance. Wow. What a comeback, dude. What an absolute comeback from the depths of hell, which is where Robinhood was, dude. 2 earnings in a row, that thing fell 15%. I mean, just an ugly decline. Nebius really close to 300 again as she's trying. X is down. You guys are right. X is not loading for me either. Okay, so it might not be a Hood thing, guys. It might be AWS. It might be AWS if X is down, or it might be Cloudflare. That's hurting a bunch of websites. We should find out soon, but it might be something deeper than Hood right here. Robin at 112.10. As she goes higher. As she goes higher. Again, we got the June numbers today, or at least the month-to-date volumes, pretty much all-time highs. So June is going very well. May was a record month for them. So Q2 probably is going to be very strong. It's just up to how much the market wants to price in even more of a premium right here. Robin, now right back to $100 billion market cap, folks. At 111, I think it crossed 100 billion. 112, it's at 101. 100 billion on Hood. This thing fell to about 65 billion earlier this year. This has, I think, been the most impressive comeback story of the year so far. I mean, what else has come back as aggressively as Hood that's not a semiconductor name? And by the way, did it without magic money going higher, aka Bitcoin. Like that to me is honestly just makes me happy as a shareholder to know that the market's finally thinking of this as a real company, not just a Bitcoin proxy. But I think it's the biggest comeback. Right there, 180, take 2. That's up 4%. You got Grand Theft Auto getting ready to come back. Hims is a good candidate. Hims was stuck at 15, now it's at 35. Honestly, at 15, it was worth what, 3 billion? Now it's about 8.2. I would give it to Hims as well. Getting back into that 40, 50 range would get a lot of people break even if they haven't DCA'd. So yeah, Hims, I would also say, is up there as a candidate. Teradyne, that's up 1%. S&P still trying to break 750. You could say Oscar touched 24 very briefly, though, before it fell back to 12. So I feel like Robinhood was stuck at the hundreds for many months, right? So was Hims. It was stuck at that 50, 60 range for a while. Oscar, I feel like barely got above 20, then went back down to where it was at 12. Oscar to me is more like a strong story this year versus a comeback. But it obviously has come back aggressively, 29.39, and the healthcare space has like gone through a re-rating with many of the AI features being part of the story. Oscar itself is just incredibly undervalued with the cash they had on hand. UNH right there, that's up 1.5% as that continues to go green. SoFi back to 18. This was stuck at 17. The crypto names are slightly up. The quantum names, D-Wave got an upgrade yesterday. That's up 1.5% as well. You could also put the quantum names up there. They were all getting hit pretty hard in March. And then you had that Trump announcement with investing in quantum, which helped them out. As that continues to go green. There was a malware hack on AWS last night. Is that true? Because if that is true, that could be part of the reason. Yeah, there was. Is X still not working? It is still not working for me. Yeah, I think there might be a deeper story to the hood server down issue if X is not working as well. Google's investing $75 million in film studio A24. Is that why this thing is down today? Why are they investing in a film studio? As for the Wall Street Journal. A24 is Ashton Kutcher's studio, I think. I mean, 75 million is a couple pennies for Google, to be honest, so who cares? But 352 new lows on Google. I would imagine they're diluting. Nebius, she's trying for 300. She really is trying right here. She's really trying. Yeah, A24, I mean, look, they've had a lot of big hits. They're working on a Knicks documentary right now with Ben Stiller, which is what I'm excited for. But I'm trying to think of it from an AI perspective, like is Google trying, I don't, film studios are not necessarily the best businesses in the world. They're media companies at the end of the day. But if Google's thinking there's an AI play to investing in, just like Netflix did with Ben Affleck. Now, reportedly, they gave him $600 million. I don't know if Ben Affleck's thing is worth $600 million, but if there's an AI angle there, that might be part of the reason. CoreWeave 116 as that continues going red. Yeah, dude, did you guys know that Starmer was leaving? That was big news to me in the morning. I was like, this guy just was in some conference announcing a bunch of new policies, and today he's resigning. And then didn't Sunak, Rishi, that guy, leave a year ago? I've never seen these many prime ministers just voluntarily leave. I saw Trump announce his resignment on X after the resignment. But why was this guy acting like he was so official a week ago, making all these policies and talking at these conferences when he knew he was going to leave? I was just so confused. I was like, really? Because that doesn't happen in the States. In the States, it's every 4 years. Very rarely do you get a president resigning from office. There has to be a really corrupt scandal for that to happen. And even then, they usually finish the term. Hims right there, 35.73. Is that still green? Is resignment not a word? Bro, resignment is definitely a word. Yes, it is a word, okay? Gemini, Gemini said it looks like you're looking for resignation. Okay, so no, but then Gemini says it says or reassignment. Okay, whatever, bro. Resignment sounded like it was a freaking word, okay? Sounded like it was a word. What are you going to tell me? Why is Meta and Google, what are they doing, bro? Meta, exploring new formats like episodic series and live TV, aiming to roll out soon. Google's investing in a film studio. Meta's investing in apparently episodic series and live TV. What is going on? I can't even get any updates on this because X is down, so I can't. This is apparently from Meta's website. Let me see if I can get an actual press release here. Amidst trolling, dude, I really thought resignment was I thought it was a word. I didn't know it was resignation. Who came up with the English language, bro? Wasn't it the Brits? Didn't the Brits come up with English? We need to have a word with them. Bitcoin right there, 65.3. Why is Meta getting into live TV? I don't know if I like that, folks. Google's investing in a film studio and Meta's investing. Isn't every dollar going into CapEx? Why the hell are they investing in media? Also, why do they need media? You've got me doing content on YouTube. You've got billions of creators on Instagram making content for free for Meta. Like, why do they need more content? Meta is testing long-form episodic storytelling on TV. The Meta-owned company, aka Instagram, is going directly retro by experimenting with time-honored films that they can run on Instagram at scale. Tesla, dude, that was at 397 a couple minutes ago. This one, massive rebound. I don't see any Tesla news, and I can't find anything because X is down, but Tesla getting a rebound. I'm not saying it's bad to invest in media. I'm just a little confused. Like, media is not a good ROI, especially for the tech companies. They don't get, I mean, like, they hire businesses off not needing to buy content like Netflix and Spotify. So why are they getting into that game? And why do they care, bro? Like, go make some AI products that the market can give you a multiple on. Like, unless they're trying to build the next Squid Games or something. Like, this is so weird. Like, I don't get it. I'm not seeing it right now. I don't get it. Dell right there. That's up 4. Isn't AI content the future? Like, shouldn't they be releasing tools to just get us all hooked onto AI TV, not actually building studios for actors to like make traditional content? Instagram VP of product says, ultimately, Instagram is about connecting people around creativity. We're all about helping creators find their audiences, and we're constantly evolving how we do that. And I really think that TV is in so many ways the next frontier of that for us. Television is the next frontier. What are they saying, bro? What is going on? What is going on? Oscar right there, 29.32. I don't know. That is interesting. There's got to be something. The same day that Google announces a big media investment, kind of looks like these companies wanted to target the story. Let's get an update on Iran real quick, and then we'll keep going from there.
Back and forth negotiations in Switzerland. We are seeing some of the diplomatic machinery crank into high gear this morning. Take a look at this post by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just within the past couple of minutes on the negotiations. He says, in line with the ongoing productive talks in Switzerland, Iran has committed to free and open transit in the Strait of Hormuz and to permit International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors into their country. As part of the framework, Treasury has issued a temporary 60-day general license authorizing the production, delivery, and sale of Iranian oil. Obviously, that's a key point for global oil markets. And take a look at this social media post that we saw just about 4 hours ago now from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, saying that the discussions were now over. He said the discussions were held in a positive and constructive atmosphere and yielded encouraging progress, including agreement on a roadmap toward a final deal within 60 days, the establishment of a high-level committee to provide political oversight, and the commencement of further technical talks. So when people in diplomacy talk about a roadmap toward a final deal, guys, that is one way of saying that we don't have a final deal just yet. And when they talk about further technical talks, that means that talks are ongoing. So I think what we can take out of these meetings in Switzerland is that the diplomatic machinery is cranking into high gear. You see the U.S. sort of living up to its side of the bargain here with this Iranian.
And that's why oil is going down. Although we don't have a deal, the market's interpreting diplomacy as very real. And that's probably why we've seen oil come down, and markets at least price that in a more positive way with the S&P going higher. By the way, folks, this is Down Detector. Everything's down. Even Cloudflare is down. X is down. Reddit's down. Zoom's down. Robinhood's down. Now that makes sense why Robinhood has been struggling. Discord's down. AWS is down. We should probably get an update very soon on what's happening here. It feels like this is either a Cloudflare issue or a server issue from the from the cloud providers. My X is still not loading. Some of you guys are saying it's working. Mine's is still not loading. My Robinhood is fine, but Google continues to fall. It might be a hack. I mean, okay, so if your services are down, put where you're located. So obviously I'm in Jersey, Northeast, and it's down. I'm curious, is this more geographic? And I also wonder who's taking the blame for the last time we saw this, it was Amazon. Amazon fell to 208 that day. This was in September. This is actually the day I started buying Amazon. I got it at 212 that day, but this was the day. This was like the week after I started buying it. But this was during that time. I was like, oh, if the world is so important that it shuts down for 5 hours because of Amazon, like maybe we should buy Amazon. Obviously, the stock has done okay since then. Not been a massive mover, but I wonder if it's Amazon again. See a lot of Californias, a lot of New Yorks. Looks like people in London are fine. Belgium, it's hurting. Spain, it's hurting. Oh, wow. So this is not just the US. Taiwan, it's hurting. Oh, this is everybody. This is everybody. Japan is down. I feel like it's got to be, if it's this global, it's got to be AWS. It's got to be AWS. Rocket Lab loses 100. No. First time in what, a couple months? First time since May? Oh, no, we touched it on June 12th. We touched it, but we rebounded really quickly. First time since, yeah, first time since May 8th. First time, if this actually sticks, first time since May 8th, we're really going down. Florida's down. This is happening because they fired all the software engineers. Yeah, Amazon. This is what happens when you fire 30,000 people. Your shit stops working. It's either AWS or Cloudflare, and I think it's AWS. It looks like a server issue that's affecting. Now, granted, Cloudflare impacts a lot of websites as well, so you can't really say for sure. Micron still pushing. Tesla, just a massive rebound. I don't see any news for that. I feel like there has to be news for that type of a candle. I cannot find anything there. But that was a quick 397 to 412. It hit 384 on Friday. SpaceX goes below 170. Man, all right, so if you bought at 150, you're still up. But 150, realistically, 150 was the lowest price you could have got on IPO day. 155-ish probably is more of the average. Now you're going to have a lot of people that maybe have a ton of shares at 158, 157 asking themselves, do I really need to stay long this, or do I take my money and run? 8% down, 2.2 trillion. That's losing about $200 billion in market cap. It's AWS. Affected AWS services. The following AWS services have been affected by this issue. 135. Okay, it looks like this might be AWS. Yeah, it's AWS. I'm seeing a couple news articles on it already. AWS. Wow, Amazon's Prime Day is coming up too. If anything, I think this only reinforces how important Amazon is, but it is annoying, obviously. Reddit 178, T1 getting a red candle right there, but still green. CoreWeave 4% down. Google. Okay, Steve said the stock draft updates every second, so let me go on it. Let me see. He said it updates every minute. Oh, wow. Okay, so far, these are the rankings. I'm in first place, 1.74. Tanner's in second, 0.65. Matt is third, 0.62. Chris, 0.59. Jason, 0.59. And then Steve is last at negative 0.23. Matt is up 8% on SpaceX. That's his best position. Oh, wow. Dude, Steve did a great job on this. Look at this. Wow. I'm down 7 on Rocket Lab. I'm down 4 on Google. I'm up 6 on Bloom, up 4 on... Wow, dude. Shout out to Steve. He really put in some work on this thing. Stockcombine.com. That's what it is. Thestockcombine.com. You can see everything out there. Look at this. Look at the visuals on this, dude. This is crazy. Some amazing stuff, dude. Amazing stuff. All right, so we'll be able to get updates every day by the minute on this draft. Google, are we ready to go below 350? Rocket Lab below 99. Oracle below 182 as well. See, this is the promise of AI as well. You know, Steve didn't have to sit there and code. He could just tell Claude what he wanted. And with actual English and words, he was able to update that website to make it stronger and better. I mean, it really does democratize opportunity for everybody, which just means we need a lot of server racks, need a lot of memory, need a lot of GPUs, need a lot of CPUs. We need all of that to keep this going. CoreWeave loses 113. Looks like we're getting a ton of red candles in. Some call flow. Someone just bought $400,000 worth of calls. 42 strike, expiring 7/24. Wow, Micron. Someone just flowed in $88 million of premium. That's probably a fund. $1,500 strike. So it's OTM. December 2027 is the expiry. Dude, it feels like the big guys are once again throwing money into Micron. They did this back in March. We saw what happened. It looks like they're doing it again. Iran, someone just bought $1 million worth of calls. $64 strike, July 17th. July 17th. As that continues to go great. Mid, I typed in the site and it brought me to a Chinese website. Did you add the? It's thestockcombine.com. So you might have forgot a word. Yeah, we're probably going to have to upgrade the servers on this as well if a lot of people keep checking it every day. So if it does crash, which it did last night, we'll make sure we can keep the website up and running. Oscar 2921. DRAM, that's up 5.1% as well. Wow, SpaceX continues to get wrecked right here. 168. 168. Rocket Lab 97. AMD, did they lose everything? Oh my goodness, AMD lost everything. 560. Okay, so these are now real red candles coming in across the board. Looks like a little 10 a.m. slam. Maybe because of this AWS outage. We saw that happen last time in September. We ended up having a red day, not just on Amazon, but on everything. But it also could just be that we pumped really heavy during the market open. Interesting. Okay, looks like that's how we're starting on Monday. Tanzim News Agency in Iran, they just said the Iranian delegation has returned back to Tehran from Switzerland following a 2-day trip. They did not comment on the productivity of the negotiations, but they are saying they officially came back. Here was Hassett this morning as well. Here's what he had to say about everything going on.
There's still work to do, but JD Vance has made a huge amount of progress. The fact that they're open to UN inspectors suggests that, you know, while the Israeli conflict with Hezbollah is something that's going to still have to be discussed, the oil market impact of this thing, I believe, is mostly resolved.
So if let's say that the other Kevin, who'll forever be, you know, Kevin's not great either because it's supposedly a male Karen. I don't know. I don't know whether that's going to stick or not.
You're going to give him grief about his first name.
Yeah, I am, because no, I'm leading to Kevin Warsh. What if Kevin Warsh were to call you and say, you know, you almost got this job, and you know, now I caught this bus that I wish I hadn't caught. Should I cut rates in the next 6 months? Would you tell him to cut rates in the next 6 months because oil's down and productivity's up?
We're very close friends. We've known each other for 30 years. You know, we definitely talk. but he's not asking the White House for advice what to do on interest rates. I think that if you look at the things that he communicated after the first meeting, you can see that he's organizing the Fed to make sure that, like, there are new procedures, new ways of thinking about things, inspection of old models, and so on, so that we never get back to a situation where the Fed's not moving and we got 9% inflation. And so I think that on net, if I were at the Fed, that I absolutely, the first meeting, you want to kind of get your feet on the ground and hold steady. But he made a huge amount of progress that he's communicated to the outside world about how he's going to improve the Fed. It's 100% consistent with what he said in the confirmation hearing.
And again, oil prices have been dropping pretty rapidly as well. You guys can put some average gas prices that you're seeing, but in Jersey, I saw 370 yesterday. I was seeing 450 a month ago. So, I mean, we are starting to see those gas prices come down, which obviously means inflation is going to come down, which also obviously means that the idea of getting a rate hike, unless I'm missing something, unless there's some structural inflation that none of us are seeing as Google loses 350, we should not have a hike in any realistic capacity. So I would imagine the Fed members will switch their mind on the next meeting in July, and that should be a tailwind for the markets right there. But that, along with the Iran delegation having productive conversations with the U.S., even if there's not a deal, that's enough to keep oil coming down. Amazon and Google both losing it today. Broadcom down 3%, and then SoFi down 3%. For those asking for the link, it's thestockcombine.com. Thestockcombine.com. We're going to change it to stockdraft.com eventually, but thestockcombine.com. That is the link. It's already stockdraft.com. Okay, perfect. Stockdraft.com. That's it. They redirected the link. That'll get you there. That's where you can keep track of everything. Broadcom, that's below 400. Nebius, once again, could not get through that $300 range. It's trying. Robinhood goes red. Okay. So these red candles are affecting all the names that had a really nice move. Market open. Is X back and working? Some of you guys think it's not Amazon, but I'm seeing other headlines saying it is Amazon. Okay, X is back. No, it's not. It was back for a second. Is it back? Nope, now it's not back. It's weird, dude. It was working for like a second, then it just went back to being bad. SPY, there's that red candle right there. Touch 750, and immediately there was your downside. Rocket Lab, ew. 10%. Down she goes. Google down 5. Amazon down 3. Where's Apple? Is Apple green? Apple somehow holds on green, 300. Netflix goes red, even worse than it was on Thursday, 74.90. Keel still holding. Your Bitcoin miners turned AI plays are the ones holding today. Your memory names are holding. Galaxy was holding. Now it's flat. MicroStrategy was also up. Now it's not red, but you got some red candles. Marvell just got hit. Yeah, X is still not working for a lot of you guys. All right, so I guess we're still experiencing some down issues. Palantir, the software names continue to get hurt. U.S. issues Iran-related general license. Wow. U.S. authorizes production, delivery, and sale of crude oil and petroleum products of Iranian origin through August 21st, 2026. There you go, folks. Iran can officially sell oil to the U.S., at least for the next 60 days. General license not only allows importers of Iranian oil to pay Tehran, but also do so in U.S. dollars. Wow. That's some pretty big progress from 2 months ago. So again, you get updates like that, the market starts to think, okay, even if there's not a deal, there's progress, which is all that matters as oil continues to come down right there. Apple 301 SPY at 747. SpaceX continues to go down. Who's buying the dip? Who's buying the dippy dip on SpaceX? I went on a little rant on SpaceX on the draft. And the reason I went on that rant is because I watched the All-In pod over the weekend, and I just cannot stand Elon's best friends acting like this valuation makes sense. I get their arguments about why SpaceX is like the most revolutionary company ever, but if they were managing real professional money, like they had to, actually answer to LPs, there's no way in hell they would put serious capital at these valuations. They're too smart. Friedberg, Chamath, Sachs. I mean, freaking J. Cal didn't like when Palantir was trading at 60 times sales. How does he feel about SpaceX trading at 120 times sales? And so I understand defending SpaceX as like a very important company that, should not be regulated out of existence, as some politicians have proposed because they hate Elon. I understand that perspective, but the idea that they're making sense of the valuation when they know that they bought in 100x ago and they would simply not buy at these levels, it's a joke, man. It's like, especially with massive amounts of the float getting ready to be unlocked. So I don't like it. I do think it's natural for SpaceX to take this type of a dip, but I also wonder how much excitement and exuberance is going to remain if this thing really takes a tumble, especially if the space thematic in and of itself takes, a bit of a tumble. I bought $70 puts for next year. Well, again, it's still only 4% of the fully diluted float, right? So that's the other massive bear case. Like, a story is fine and dandy and feels amazing until shares get issued and you realize that the shares that you were playing with are now 1/1000th of the total shares available versus 1/10 of the total shares available. And you learn pretty quickly that this is not fun because there's a lot of people that just used you as exit liquidity. And I don't know if that's definitely going to happen with SpaceX, but if some of these companies can barely hold their $1 trillion valuations in the Mag 7, I'm not sure SpaceX gets to hold $3 trillion. Meta right there, 567. That's down 1.6% as well. Are you buying Netflix, Amit? I have been debating it for a while as Netflix is officially low 70s, right? 74.60. I think this is the 52-week low. Or no, 72 is the 52-week low. My only concern with Netflix, once again, is I just don't see where the growth is coming from in the next 6 months in any meaningful capacity. Yeah, the lowest it got to was... No, this is lower. Wow, 75.01 was the lowest back in the Warner Brothers Discovery negotiations. 74.65. Folks, we are lower than where we were during those discussions. Yeah, my only fear is, again, I just outside of live sports, I don't know what's getting people to be compelled to subscribe to Netflix. They're going to have to announce some type of share repurchase or new partnership, or the fact that they're interested in buying Lionsgate and they tried to buy Roku. Like, I just feel like there's a little bit of lack of direction right here. And I also think the multiple compared to Meta or Amazon is still not that compelling. So it's like, yeah, this thing probably should bottom out here, I would imagine. But there's other opportunities if we're going to go dumpster diving that are still pretty cheap. Nebius, 287. Robinhood goes red. You're seeing a lot of stuff go red. SPY goes red. Palantir, we have officially lost 125. It's time to see if we can hold 120 for Palantir. Google, again, 348. This is actually, Google was trading at 348 when the S&P was trading at 720 2 weeks ago, before Trump said the tweet in the afternoon that spiked everything up. This was 2 Thursdays ago. So S&P has not gone back to those levels. Google has. Am I wrong on that? No, yeah, Google, yeah, June 11th, Google was at 346. It's at 348. Very close to getting back there, or at least very close to that level. Micron is holding on to its green, dude. The memory names are being champs right here. Let's go to all the semis. All of the semis are green except Marvell, ARM, Broadcom, ASML, and then NVIDIA, which was actually having a good day. This one got flipped. Let's not call Netflix dumpster diving. I mean, you tell me. If you look at the stock performance this year, it's down 18%. It's down 40% over the past year. If this is not in the dumpster, I don't know where it is. Doesn't mean it's a trash company, but it is a trash stock. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Down 40% in the past year after a massive bull market. Like, yeah, the stock got hit pretty bad. And I just don't know if this is like the moment to buy. Also, remember, the catalyst last time Netflix was at this price was the $3 billion breakup fee, which is essentially $3 billion of free money. I don't know if someone's giving them $3 billion of free money as easily as they did last time. If that doesn't happen, I'm not sure that thing flips as quickly. Cypher, 29.36. Symbiotic, that's down 4%. NVIDIA officially flips red. SpaceX, highest beta name in the market, you could argue, 10% down. Meta, are we below 565? We are very close to that. No real headlines I can give you, folks. We had some good stuff in the morning. Oil's down. This is actually very similar to last Tuesday, where I think you just had some general exhaustion and, you know, things pumped really hard early on, and then they just kind of slowly fell off. Now, last week we did have FOMC as the sort of catalyst of uncertainty. This week, outside of Micron earnings, I'm not sure there's anything too crazy. It's funny because the names that were really green when the market opened, there's like flat to slightly red. And the names that were red when the market opened are just even more red. And that's been the story of so many of these names. Palantir down 3, Google down 5. Intel still up, Intel holding. Qualcomm, that just flipped green. It's not everything going bloody red right here. GE Vernova, that's still up. CrowdStrike, that's still up as well. Microsoft, $373. Put in the chat if you've been buying Microsoft. Put in the chat if you've been buying Microsoft. I've been working on a Microsoft article. I kind of feel like it's now or ever or never for Microsoft. But then again, dude, this is the hard part about buying the dip on some of these names. Like, you think you're getting a good deal, which you are, but you're also like, man, am I buying dead money knowing that it's a good deal? And can I be okay with just seeing Credo and Micron and SanDisk go up another 10% over the next month and Microsoft be flat, knowing that I'm getting a good deal? Yeah, Microsoft is also dumpster diving. I would agree with that. Lumentum, that's down 2%. The Anthropic and Micron deal we talked about in the morning. Again, good for Anthropic to secure compute and storage via memory for that compute. And that's probably why the market also liked it as well. Dell right there, that's up 5%. See a decent chunk of people buying. Let's do a poll on that, actually. Let's see the actual percentage of people buying Microsoft. Let's get Warren Pies on as well and get his macro take. This is actually one of the macro analysts I really enjoyed listening to. And we'll keep going from there.
React to this supply shortage, supply-induced oil spike. And yeah, that's coming down, but the residual impact is this political pressure the Fed's feeling. I think it was reflected in Waller's speech last month, where he basically said he doesn't think there's a real inflation problem, but he's worried about the public's perception of the Fed's inflation. So I think that's what we're dealing with as investors. I think that's what a lot of the market signals we're seeing are showing us. So I think the focus is now going to go to this new Warsh-led Fed and what that means for policy.
So you do still think they cut first, although maybe not till next year?
Yes, I think we're on a true hold right now. So that's a big change. So going into the Iran war, there was 75 basis points of cuts built into the SOFR market. And now we're at like 1.5 hikes. So 37 something basis points of hikes. And so the market has tightened significantly over the course of this war. And now we have the price of oil coming down. I think that when you really look through what is the true nature of this economy and the labor market to a certain extent, we haven't seen the unemployment rate plunge. It's just held steady. Yes, we've had some good job growth over the last 3 months, but when you zoom out when you strip out government and government adjacent jobs, education, healthcare, we have 0% job growth over the last year. And then you look at the like Atlanta Fed wage tracker. Wages are
same argument from Warren right here. Unemployment's flat, wage growth is not as strong, but inflation stays flat and or down. If oil comes down, unemployment comes down, which means likely no rate cuts or likely no rate hikes.
Seeing some of the diplomatic machinery crank into high gear this morning. Take a look at this post by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just within the past couple of minutes on the negotiations. He says, in line with the ongoing productive talks in Switzerland, Iran has committed to free and open transit in the Strait of Hormuz and to permit International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors into their country. As part of the framework, Treasury has issued a temporary 60-day general license authorizing the production, delivery, and sale of Iranian oil. Obviously, that's a key point for global oil markets. And take a look at this social media post that we saw just about 4 hours ago now from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, saying that the discussions were now over. He said the discussions were held in a positive and constructive atmosphere and yielded encouraging progress, including agreement on a roadmap toward a final deal within 60 days, the establishment of a high-level committee to provide political oversight, and the commencement of further technical talks. So when people in diplomacy talk about a roadmap toward a final deal, guys, that is one way of saying that we don't have a final deal just yet. And when they talk about further technical talks, that means that talks are ongoing. So I think
maybe that's why the market's a little upset. Like, you can interpret it bullishly that the fact that the U.S. is letting Iran sell oil right now and that they made some progress is part of the reason we went green this morning. Microsoft continues to get hit. Same with Google. Part of the Palantir, 123. I think 123.79 was the bottom a month ago. Let's see if we go below that. But part of the reason the market maybe is a little upset is that there is no official clarity on where the deal is going. Like, maybe there's a bearish way to interpret some of these updates, even though, I would lean bullish on a 60-day ceasefire extension with the ability to sell oil. So this feels more like a dump based on a high level of a pump as soon as the market opened versus being upset about Iran, because the Iran updates seem relatively bullish. Unless the market just decides that until complete clarity, we're going to be bearish. SoFi getting whacked down 3, D-Wave down 2. Corning's still up. Taiwan's still up, even though it's not up as much. Taiwan semi 2.43 trillion. Credo's still up 11. Again, not everything going red. SMCI still up 12 on the day. Basically at 52-week highs. There's a 60% chance of the Clarity Act getting passed by the end of the summer as of Polymarket this morning. So that should also be a good catalyst for Bitcoin. SpaceX still getting hit right here. Down 9%. You got Oppenheimer that put a $250 target. Here's what they have to say about SpaceX.
Oppenheimer, he's got a buy rating on SpaceX. $250 price target, Tim, which I noted you raised after the Cursor acquisition. So how are you valuing this company right now?
Well, the company, we think, has doubled their valuation in the last 6 months by entering the AI market. And we think they're going to continue to do incredibly creative things. They think, AI is a $25 trillion TAM. And they are the only vertically integrated company that can attack every segment of this and really disrupt an awful lot of industries. So I think they're just going to be incredibly innovative going forward. Elon talked last week about having $1 trillion in revenue in 5 years. We're only about a third of that. If he comes anywhere near that, generally companies like this would trade in the 10 times revenue, run rate. So we're looking at a $10 trillion company in 5 years. We're not valuing it anywhere near that, but you can kind of see the opportunity out there.
So you buy that total addressable market?
I do. I think AI is the killer app for cloud. It's the most important general purpose technology in 100 years. It's about to be able to do most jobs digitally anyway that humans can do, but frankly, substantially better. I do think that's going to disrupt an awful lot of industries and create a lot of productivity improvements.
I'm just curious to come back, Tim, for a second. You said they're the only vertically integrated company out there. I mean, you don't consider Alphabet?
Did he say 10 trillion in revenue? Q's go red just now. Oppenheimer, I mean, they tend to be a respected sell side on Wall Street. So, I mean, 250, that's a pretty big target, assuming 10 trillion. SpaceX does 20 billion right now in revenue. 10 trillion market cap. 10 trillion per week. Oh, 10 trillion every other day. Why not?
Sort of have that position as well?
They would be the closest, but SpaceX is making their own solar panels. They want to make their own chips. I mean, they want to, build a fab that'll create 5 times the amount of chips that the whole world is producing, currently. It has 3 different forms of data. It's in the physical AI as well as the digital AI world. So Google would be the closest other one, yes.
And closer to, well, not closer to home because it's still up there, but Starlink, we've talked a lot about it. I'm reading some reports recently in terms of the filing activity from SpaceX and what their real ambitions are there. How are you valuing that business, given we may see nearer term revenues, we already do and will continue to, from Starlink than we do from some of the other ambitions you're discussing?
Yeah, we think Starlink will be worth roughly $1 trillion, obviously, give or take, but it is clearly the main driver of revenue and free cash flow at this point. We think over the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to increase capacity 100-fold. So they already have about 12 million broadband subscribers globally. We think they could easily support a couple of 100 million. They're also going to get into the mobile market, and that will eventually be bigger than the broadband market. So they are going to look to disrupt the communications industry, and that really is the cash cow to fund AI initially, and then all of that will be the cash cow to fund the trip to Mars.
They funding the trip to Mars, dude. I don't even know if that guy is believing what he's saying right here. 738 right here on the cues. You got to remember, a lot of times the sell side, they issue a price target up or down because they have either sister firms or firms they're very close with that are trying to get the stock to move up or down. I've literally heard this from different sell side analysts that they've had hedge fund managers call them or call their boss if they're like a junior analyst and, order the boss to get the analyst to put out a certain price target. Like, it's a very political and rigged game, which is why you have to be careful of which sell side analysts you really care about and follow. But that guy did not sound excited about the vision on SpaceX. Down 10% right here. On the day, Google 348. It is below that Berkshire price. What a weird day. We pump like crazy in the morning. Then we get a dump, but not a full dump because your microns, your SMCIs are still green. Then you get Google and Meta investing in live television and media, which I'm sorry, I just don't get why that's a focus right now. Then you have AWS. It looks like go down. Is my X back? My X is still not back, folks. I'll try reloading again. But it should be back, hopefully, for most people. Robin, it seems like it's back for most people. And then you get the SPY that gets a little bit of a dump from 750 all the way down to 744. All of that happening in the last hour, basically. Okay, now X is working. Okay, there we go. All right, so we should be back now, which hopefully means at least some of those down detector issues are gone. But a lot of these names obviously still getting hit. Then NVIDIA, which was pushing 215 this morning, reverses as well. Okay, I meant Twitter. This is why we still call it Twitter. I'm not talking about the actual X, which I haven't talked to in a long time. Because I'm busy making money. Busy making money amidst handshakings when X is down 5 minutes. Dude, X being down, like, I think I checked that thing as Pounters losing 123.60. I check it. I think I check it literally every couple minutes. Every couple minutes, bro. That's my app. I'm there every day. What was his name? She's watching right now. No, she's not watching right now because she hates capitalism. She hates business. That was part of the reason, bro. It's part of the, I remember, like, after a couple of years, you start having conversations as, like, you want to progress in life and you start talking about business and stuff, and you realize, like, oh my goodness, this person really hates, like, wealthy people and shit. It's just like, that was kind of the main catalyst for me. Is like, dude, I am trying to get rich. I do not need someone who hates rich people on my side. So I'm trying to be one of those people. Dell right there, that's up 3. She was a commie. No, she's like a legit commie, bro. Like eat the rich Instagram story posts, like legit, like hates billionaires type shit. Like was like, all right. I was like that person as well. That's part of the reason we got along. But then I took economics 101 freshman year of college. I was like, oh, that's not how the world works. Like Shopify 108. Speaking of communism, dude, Ro Khanna got absolutely destroyed on X over the weekend by Friedberg. And, again, forget the politics of it. The dude is calling for a massive level of seizure of assets. And Friedberg was just like, dude, you're worth 200 million. Let's start with you. And it's like he got ratio. I think this is the biggest ratio in the history of X. His post got 125 likes and Friedberg got 30,000 likes. I would like to see you make a voluntary contribution of 5% of your family's $200 million net worth to the government for important healthcare, childcare, and jobs. Don't worry, it's just one time. Your $10 million contribution will provide free childcare for over 1,000 California kids for a year. Once you made your personal contribution to a more just and equitable society, I'll support all your other asset seizure ideas, but you got to go first. I mean, what's wrong with what he's saying? If Ro Khanna is going to be the guy saying we need to take all this money from all these people that are so successful, which again, politically, you can agree with that, but he's not willing to commit to do it himself, which of course he's not, because they never want to give up their own money. I don't know. It begs the question. It's like a lot of this is just virtue signaling most of the time. TSM 470, as that's 1.7. How is he owning him on that? Because in my opinion, if Ro Khanna doesn't respond with a unequivocal, yes, I'm willing to do that, which he hasn't, obviously, then I think proposing legislation that you're not willing to engage in because it only affects the billionaires and not people that have $200 million, where you don't need $200 million to live a good life, right? That's the problem with this bright line argument. What happens if you have $1 million, 200 million, 10 million? Like, if you can voluntarily have your assets go to a more just cause, then why not send them to that just cause, right? Why target a billionaire versus someone who's worth 200 million? It's the same thing, effectively. It's excess wealth. It's just usually the billionaire has all that wealth tied up in stock because, it's hard to have $1 billion liquid. Palantir right there, 123.45. Nonetheless, it's something we cannot ignore. The people that walked out of Sundar's speech, the people that walked out of Eric Schmidt's speech, there is a generation of people that do not believe in capitalism. They don't believe in wealth creation. They don't believe in AI. They don't believe in productivity. And for some real reasons, I'm not dismissing their reasons. There's some legit reasons for why they think the system has failed them. But regardless, that is a debate that will continue into the midterms. And it will probably dictate the future of AI policy and then, the future of economic policy. Broadcom loses everything it got on the rebound back to 395. CoreWeave, disgusting right here, 120 to 111 on the day as that's getting hit. Google continues to, wow, 346. Okay, so this is officially the low, folks, that we had 2 weeks ago. The S&P was much lower, though, which is a little weird here. It's also weird that you've got a couple semis holding on, the Bitcoin miners holding on. It looks like they're either going to go red or market's going to reverse. Nebius very close to going red, 50 cents away from going red as well. Ro Khanna also trades like crazy. I mean, yeah, that's the other thing, dude. It's like, the guy did what, 4,000 trades last year? And people will say it's his wife. It's like, okay, like the point is the dude is in the elite class with wealth and money. And, he should tell his wife, hey, honey, it doesn't look good for me to be this big, famous congressperson and for you to be trading all these stocks. Like, but they don't, because they want to make money at the end of the day. Like, everyone wants to make money. It's just his base needs him to criticize the people making the money. So midterms are going to be interesting, man. Midterms are going to be really interesting. Is it going to be affordability? Is it going to be Iran war? What's going to be the argument for Republicans to keep the House and the Senate? Or do the Democrats have a compelling pitch of like, hey, these data centers are taking your jobs and we're going to fight against it? Like, I think that pitch should not be ignored as an argument. SpaceX now 11% down on the day as that continues to go down. Meta also getting hit down 2%. Dude, what? It just kind of happened all at once randomly for the red candles to pop in, but they're not everywhere, even though it feels like it should be everywhere, right? You still have some parts of the market. Now, they're starting to get there. Qualcomm starting to 10 cents, that goes red. SMH, a couple bucks, that goes red. Redwire destroyed. Where's Rocket Lab? 11%, that's down. Rocket Lab, 8%, that's down. Bounced off 96. Tanner's in the lead now in the draft. That is how quick this stuff can change, as some of these names are still holding on. It's 10:30 dump. Maybe it's just 10:30 stuff, but this started happening earlier than that. Oh, there might actually be a reason I can give you guys. I forgot to mention this in the morning. So JP Morgan put out this note yesterday. This actually makes sense. Let me pull up the exact. Yeah, so JP Morgan's quant strategists estimate a massive 165 billion quarter-end rebalance from equities into bonds ending this week. This is exactly what happened 2 months ago in the opposite direction when we were ending out Q1. So these things happen where you have rotations either at the end of the month, end of the quarter. Obviously, stocks have had a massive run, so you've got a lot of the institutional funds that are probably going to take some of their profits off the table. Now, I don't know if that's the exact reason, but if we are going to see a rotation into more safe money from risk on capital, then it would happen this week as the quarter is coming to an end. And maybe that could be part of the reason. Now, again, I don't know if it's happening today, tomorrow, over the next couple of days. But if JP Morgan's doing it, then you would imagine other quant strategists at different institutions are likely in the same boat. Oracle right there below 180. Nokia still up 4. Robinhood loses everything today. Back to 107 a bit. Why is Palantir going down so much? I really do not think, wow, we just lost 123. I do not think it is anything specific about Palantir. Unfortunately, I think IGV is programmed to go down for whatever reason. The forces that control the market want it to go down. And I think Palantir and Microsoft's chart is actually very similar. Microsoft, you put them on top of each other, they kind of move with each other. Microsoft's down 20% year to date. Palantir, 26% year to date. Both the largest two components of IGV. I do think the software thing is getting a bit ridiculous, but what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? The market wants more memory, more server racks. Photonics taking a hit too, though. Lumentum's down, Coherent's down, AAOI. This thing is taking a pretty ugly dip as well from 200 to 156. As all of these continue to get hit. Google, wow, 345. It could go down another 20% and still be overvalued. Look, people have been saying that about a variety of the software names. Obviously, Palantir still has, wow, Palantir lose 300 billion, 294. I'm not saying I disagree that Palantir could fall 20% and still be quote unquote expensive by conventional metrics. But now that it's collapsed this much, if you go out a couple years, it is not that crazy. A couple years out, it's trading below 1 peg. Whereas last year it was trading at 8 peg. It's trading at 35 times earnings a couple years out. Right now it's at 138, 90 times 1 year forward. I mean, like if they keep up that growth rate, which I think they will, at high 70, 80%, along with margins growing the way they're growing, yes, the multiple's up there, but if Wall Street's about looking into the future, you got a couple years, you get a pretty reasonable multiple. If you don't want to go to a couple years, it's like, okay, fine. But like for every stock you have to look at, otherwise NVIDIA's expensive. If you don't go a couple years out, right? Same thing with AMD. You got to go out at least to 2028. So I don't, if it goes down 20% from here and it keeps up that growth, I think it's a screaming buy. The question is that what's going to happen? Meta on track to lose 560. As SoFi potentially could lose 17. Yeah, thank you for that, P. Lafer. Palantir's at a 1 forward peg, not a couple years, just 1 year. That is correct. Let me pull up its price of sales as well a year out. I have to look at the revenue estimates real quick, but it's really not as expensive. I mean, if you're going to pay what you're paying for Snowflake and CrowdStrike that aren't even GAAP profitable, let me say that again. They're not even GAAP profitable. They don't have any of the margin expansion that Palantir has. Not even close. And they're not growing top line anywhere near what Palantir is growing. If they're going to get those multiples, I mean, come on, we can't argue that Palantir is absurdly overvalued at that point. Rocket Lab 97, CoreWeave 110, D-Wave down 4 as well, as these are getting hit. BMNR was up 5%, then it ended up going red, or at least flat. What do you think about ELF? Retail sales pumped it up last week. It obviously took a nasty hit over the past month, so I think the 25% rebound last week was justified, especially given the quality of the company it is. It's just, once again, is the semi-trade all engulfing for where the capital is going right now, or, you know, does it get to diversify out to consumer discretionary? And I'm not sure it easily diversifies without a major catalyst. Outside of, you know, ELF being super undervalued, which it was, but it also pumped a lot last week. Google loses 345. What is going on? Google's cooked, bro. These guys let me pick at the 7th round only to get cooked. 344.96. See, but Tanner's Microsoft is cooked as well. Anyone who has the Mag 7, outside of Apple, which has somehow remained a little different from the rest of them, you all get cooked up or down. Yeah, Mag 7 more like Bag 7. Is the 10-year up? Is it? The 10-year is up. Keel just lost 7. Oh, the 10-year is up today. That's weird, bro, with oil coming down. Oh, dude, oil is still down. It's not like it spiked up during the day. It's 74.20. It's about 20 cents. It goes below 74. That'd be the lowest we've seen in a couple weeks. People selling off bonds and stocks today. The scam 7. That is correct. That is correct. AMD lost the entire pump today. 560 to 546. I'm happy SpaceX is down. It's proven that this market's rational. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair perspective. SpaceX at 230 was, in my opinion, irrational. It also makes it more likely for markets to be in a scary situation when Allbirds going up 3,000%. It's like, who cares? SpaceX doing the same thing. You're just so much money, and so much of retail's capital, quite frankly, is at risk at that point, that it does make things a bit scarier. So it's come back to reality. I mean, I don't think it has to go back to 135 in the IPO price, but I'm not sure if the excitement's going to be there to pump it back up to 200. Palantir once again below 123. Is SanDisk actually up? Oh my goodness, dude. In the midst of all of this, SanDisk is up 7, Micron's up 5. Unbelievable, dude. It's just like this memory story is like, it's got to be the best story in the entire market still at a reasonable multiple. It's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible as Google continues to go down. Yeah, memory is acting like the freaking safe spot for capital here. Concentrated trades never end well. Look, that is my fear around memory as well. But every time I have that fear, every time I have a fear that memory could collapse, I try to ask myself why. And it's like, I don't know why. Why would it? There's like a couple scenarios. You would have to have the tech companies come up with massive innovations that requires less memory. It's like, okay, maybe that could happen. I don't know how quickly that's going to happen. 2, you have massive supply come online, but these contracts they've signed are multi-years, and those fabs, even if they come online, That's not going to resolve the short term. So the pricing power will exist. And then 3, agentic AI will require more memory than we can possibly imagine because it's going to be doing stuff for us all day, every day, 24/7. And it's going to need a lot of context to be able to understand how to do all that stuff. That's just going to require more memories. Every time I think the trade is overcrowded, I'm like, well, fundamentally, the chart looks crazy to buy, but like, is the trade actually dead? As Reddit loses 182 all the way down to 173. Wow, SpaceX, we got a new deal. Talk about being the ultimate neocloud. Let's see if the market likes it. $6.3 billion. They have signed a new computing deal with open source AI startup Reflection. Open source AI startup Reflection. Some of you guys probably heard of them, Reflection AI. I heard of these guys a month ago. They have a bunch of these OpenAI ex-engineers that started it. SpaceX signed $6.3 billion compute deal with Reflection. That is, I guess, continuing the thesis for the neocloud ambitions that Elon has with renting out Colossus.
Startup last valued at $25 billion. Now, Reflection will get access to NVIDIA's top-of-the-line AI chips used to train and run advanced models, and has agreed to pay SpaceX $150 million a month starting July 1st through 2029. Now, if the deal runs through the end of its term, that is about $6.3 billion in total. Either side can walk away with 90 days notice after the first 3 months. Now, the backdrop, guys, is, of course, what SpaceX is doing with Colossus. This is Elon Musk's massive AI data center build out. It was built in part to power Grok as a rival to OpenAI and Anthropic chatbots, but now SpaceX is increasingly turning that infrastructure into a business itself, selling compute to outside AI companies like Reflection. Now, it has already struck compute deals with Anthropic, Google, and Cursor, which it's now acquiring. Reflection is the latest customer, but it's also a strategically different one because it is focused on open source AI. Now, Reflection's pitch is that customers should have more control, models that they can customize, run themselves, eventually own themselves. Reflection, however, it has not yet released a public frontier open source model. The competition here is moving extremely fast, especially from China. GPU's latest model, GLM 5.2, it has been getting a ton of attention here in Silicon Valley as a powerful open source model at a fraction of the cost. Some actually calling it the next DeepSeek moment. And guys, so this deal is really about Reflection trying to get the compute that it needs, the horsepower it needs to catch up and compete against these Chinese models, but also SpaceX building out its data center business.
Maybe that's why Google's under pressure. You know, just another Chinese model does it sort of cheaper, and investors are excited about it.
Yeah, a lot of things are happening.
That could be a reason. I mean, there's been a lot of updates about open source models. We'll talk about one of the big things Microsoft did last week, but now I don't know if that's intrinsically bearish. It's really bullish to neoclouds. I don't know if that's super bearish Gemini, but if you do have more open source, cheaper compute, or I should say tokens, you might have customers potentially want to use that stuff over Gemini, Anthropic, and OpenAI.
DeepMind had some very high-profile departures, but that's not really new. We've seen talent move around the major frontier labs here in the U.S. But Sarah, I think you're right. It is really these Chinese models and the momentum that we've seen for open source that really gained another leg after Anthropic cut off access to Fable and Mythos, its top models, which made a lot of companies and governments, in fact, stand back and realize, hold on, we can't build on a model if access can be cut off at any moment. And so you see them taking another look at open source, and the best models right now, they are Chinese in terms of benchmarks and adoption, but there are players here in the US who are taking a harder look, focusing. Reflection AI that's doing this deal with SpaceX is one of them. They've raised a lot of money. They're valued at $25 billion, and they want to get to the frontier at open source so that they can make that more available to American companies. NVIDIA, with its Nemotron family of models, is another player here.
Dee, appreciate that. A lot to absorb and understand. That's our Dear DeBose.
All right, what do people think? Google down 7%. This has got to be the worst day it's had since March, I would imagine, as this one is getting hit right here. Yeah, maybe SpaceX not really catching any love off that news, by the way. It's still down 9%. The Googs now 343. Berkshire's bag holding. They're down about 70 million on their 350 purchase. What happened again? Okay, so I think what's either Google's diluting that 85 billion of stock issuance, which I already think has happened. So I'm not sure if that's the case, but let's say that could be one reason why it's down. The second reason could be that SpaceX signed a $6.3 billion deal with a open source AI model startup that doesn't even have a model that's out there yet, as Google loses 343. So if this is the headline, this is basically a cheaper model that could threaten Gemini, Anthropic, and OpenAI for lower token costs, challenging the perceived dominance of Gemini in the enterprise if more clients start switching on to that cheaper compute or cheaper model to cheaper models, which will use the same type of compute that Elon's licensing to all of them, but it might be more effective compute if the token generation is costing less. And as a result, that's not stopping GCP or Gemini from growing. I mean, this company has no model, no fundamental business yet, but the perception is that it could. And perception is reality. It's just that's a hard reality for Google to navigate in one day. 7%. That is basically Google has lost so far $285 billion of market cap today. I think that's got to be, that might be up there in largest single day declines for Google. I don't think Google's had like a 10% red day this whole year, maybe in March, but I don't even think it got that bad in March. Microsoft down another 2% as that continues to get hit. That is interesting. A company with no cloud business, no enterprise business, no model might be the reason Google's down 6. As CoreWeave also gets hit. Wow, 120 to 109. This thing was looking like it was going to try to break out to 130 last week. By the way, 62% of you guys say long Microsoft here. I think that's a really silly reason for Google to be down, but nonetheless, it looks like that is a reason. But it's not just Google. It's Microsoft. It's Meta. It's all of them. Tesla going the opposite. I do not know why Tesla's green, especially when SpaceX is down. They've kind of been trading with each other, but Tesla flips up. Interesting, though, that SpaceX is going this heavy on the compute route, because even Elon said he doesn't want the NeoCloud business to be the long-term aspiration of SpaceX. They want to use that compute. They don't want to license it. Now, obviously, they don't have enough demand to be using it. At least that's what it seems like. So they're licensing it out. But still, you would... I don't know. You would think that Elon is not going to sign these massive multi-year agreements till 2029, but he is, which means maybe they will keep that Anthropic and Google deal going for a long time, which would be increased revenue for SpaceX, even if it's not profitable revenue. But I mean, it is more and more deals of compute for SpaceX, which essentially frames them as an AI infrastructure play. Amazon down 5% as well. What an interesting Monday morning. What happened to Amazon today? Nothing. Outside of maybe an AWS shortage, which was pretty... I mean, it was relatively quick. It lasted for about 30 minutes. More updates on that JP Morgan note I told you guys about, 165 billion. Couple sub layers. Japan's government pension fund with 1.9 trillion is estimated to sell 60 billion in equities. Norway's bank managing 2.1 trillion sovereign wealth fund is expected to sell 40 billion. U.S. pension funds expected to sell 55 billion. They have 9.6 trillion in assets. And then the Swiss National Bank is estimated to sell 25 billion. of its equity allocation. Balanced mutual funds in the United States managing $4 trillion in assets are estimated to buy $15 billion in equities. So basically, that might be what we're seeing happen right here to cause some of the red. You just have more and more of this decline in purchasing power from some large institutions as they're selling off and flipping to bonds from a CTA perspective. As SanDisk continues to go higher. Wow. There you go. Yeah, I don't know, dude. These SpaceX compute deals, it's important and it makes sense, but I don't for Nebius to get a deal like that, that would be amazing. For SpaceX at $2.3 trillion to get a $6 billion deal, it'll definitely juice up the top line. I don't know if the market's going to love it. And you're seeing zero reaction from the market right here. They're just not even impressed by that. Like a $6 billion deal on CoreWeave or Nebius and Iran would have that thing up 30% right now. And for SpaceX, the market does not care. Amazon's still down 4%. SMCI, massive move right here, 15% up on the day. As that continues to go higher. Will SpaceX recover with the NASDAQ 100 inclusion? I don't know if it recovers to like the 200s, but obviously it definitely makes a big move. Barry Ritholtz was on a pod over the weekend and he had some thoughts on it. And I thought his explanation made a lot of sense as well.
I'm so glad you brought up the point about the small float. And I'd love for you to expand on that. I mean, just to frame it for people, only 4% of the shares are publicly traded. And that's what we call the float. And as we have mentioned in previous episodes, the rules for NASDAQ inclusion were changed. It used to be that you needed at least 10% of your shares publicly traded, and they changed it for SpaceX, and SpaceX only 4%. So it's a very, very small float. And your point is this means that it's, I guess, less serious, that we should take the valuation perhaps less seriously than you would a company like Microsoft or Amazon, where trillions of dollars worth of shares are being publicly traded. Could you just expand on that? Why is that important? And why does that smack of engineering, as you say?
It's artificial scarcity. If you want a Porsche 911 ST, they only make 100 of them and they're charging $300,000 over what this should be going for. So that's a problem, number one. And number two, you end up with this crazy imbalance, which is artificial. Look, Rolex has been doing that very successfully for 10 years. They sell 2 million to 3 million watches a year. Why can't you just walk into a Rolex dealer and buy the Daytona you want? Well, you can't, because they've created this imbalance, this artificial imbalance between, hey, they could double their production and not sell out, still sell out and not have a problem. But by keeping production low, they keep profits high, they keep demand high. They're very foremost in buyers' minds. And what SpaceX did was very much the same thing. 4% of the float is nothing. They will eventually get to almost all of the float being public, but it's like a 12-month process. So we will really have a better idea of what the price discovery, what the collective belief of the true value of SpaceX is sometime in 2027.
I would add on to that. I mean, if we're making the Rolex comparison, what would happen to the price of Rolexes if there was a guy who owned the majority of the Rolexes in the world, and then one day he decided, okay, now I'm going to list it on the market, now I'm going to sell them? That would have a significant impact, which brings me to the lockups and the expiration of the lockups for SpaceX, which will happen over the course of the next 150 days-ish. They have a slightly strange lockup expiration agreement. But the point is, many of the insiders cannot sell yet, but eventually they will be able to sell, at which point you got to ask the question, are they going to sell? And if they do, what will that do to the price? What do you think?
My frame of reference is looking at the .coms that went public, looking at every time there's a hot sector, and suddenly there's a few hundred newly minted millionaires. The weird thing, and I'm going to pull from Scott's line, it's never been harder to become a millionaire. It's never been easier to become a billionaire. When you look at these companies that finally go public after a long time, the challenge is, how do you keep the staff motivated? How do you keep them working? Suddenly, you tend to be a little less excited about going to work when your bank account is 10 or 11 digits, when you're a $100 million How much are you going to be grinding away? Handful of exceptions like Warren Buffett, who just keep working for the love of it. It doesn't matter what they're worth. So I think you're going to see some stock shake loose. This company has been private for a while. It's raised incredible amounts of venture and secondary financing, and there have been very slight opportunities for liquidity. But the expectation was there's going to be a big IPO. We should all sit tight. And if you've been with this company for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and you suddenly have the opportunity to ring the bell for $50 million, $100 million, $200 million, I think any financial advisor would tell you, you've won. You're foolish not to lock in the sort of generational wealth. And if you don't, we've seen this happen with everybody from not just the disasters like Lehman Brothers or the missteps like General Electric, but Peloton. They were hot for a while, then they weren't. And the stories were that round trip cost insiders billions of dollars. So
he's talking about when Peloton went to, it was $150 a share at the peak, and then went down to $4 after it was at that top. Peloton, $171 a share, and then came all the way down to $2.70. So look, I do think that there's going to be an increased float of SpaceX unlocking and all of these deals that they announce. The thing about hype is when it dies away, it's hard to get it back. And, you know, when Tesla was hyped up in 2021 and it died out, it took years for it to get back to those same highs. The question is, does the hype die out with SpaceX at these levels with new shares getting unlocked? And, you know, that's going to determine how much people care about it. CoreWeave still down 7, and Amazon still down 5. Dens, thank you for the super chat. I won't be able to attend the meetup, but this should cover some of your grab rides and food deliveries when you're here in Singapore. Thank you for everything you do, and I hope to bump into you onto the streets. Enjoy your trip. Dens, I wish you could make the meetup. I know you've been part of the channel for, I think, like 3 years now. So thank you so much for the super chat, and really looking forward to the trip, and looking forward to seeing so many people there in Singapore. I don't even think it's hit me that I'm going to Singapore in 2 days. Like, when you're just so indulged in the markets, you kind of don't stop to think about it. So hopefully the trip will be a good experience to kind of just relax and see a new part of the world. It's been a long time since I went international, but I'm looking forward to it, and it should be fun to see a lot of OG people on the channel from years ago. Google, are we going below 342? We did. 341.93 on the Googs as it continues to go down. Fox says, I'm going to miss you. I'm flying to Korea tomorrow. Wow, okay. And put in the chat if you're going on a vacation this summer or even in the next couple of weeks. I guess this is my vacation, Singapore and Bali. We'll still do the market open at least 5 times. We won't get the market closed, but we'll be back July 6th. But put in the chat if you are planning a vacation or going anywhere pretty soon. NVIDIA, once again, below 210. S&P lows of the day as we're hitting that 744 level. CoreWeave also lows of the day, 108.67. SanDisk and Micron don't care. SpaceX continues to go down. SoFi continues to go down. ASTS continues to go down. The other semi names, they're holding up. Dell, HP, and SMCI. I see Canada. I see Vegas. I see Portugal for the honeymoon. I love it. DSOV, that's going to be fun. Yeah, I think some people are also planning their trips around the World Cup. I think in Jersey today, Senegal is playing someone. I forgot who. But they're having that game. Oh, Norway, right? I think it's Norway today at the MetLife Stadium. We're having a lot of these games play out internationally as well. Dude, Japan. I cannot wait to do Japan. Eventually. I've heard so many amazing things about it. The food, the culture. It's probably going to be a few years, but Japan is absolutely at the top of my list. Palantir lows of the day as well. Goodness gracious, bro. It kind of seems like forced selling today, and it's everything. It's semis and software. Now, semis is a bit more selective, but it is everything here. Meta's down 3% as well. Qualcomm, this was almost red. This one's holding up. It's not losing it. 228. Peru in August. Ooh. Yeah, Singapore's going to be hot. That is fair. It's going to be very, very hot. I don't know. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing the entire region. But again, I'm curious how this summer is going to price in a lot of these things. Obviously, as oil has come down, it ended up being a sell the news more than a buy opportunity, which meant it was priced in. So the market knew it was coming down. And now the question is how much more of a premium. Like the big bear case that, we haven't talked about too much, but it's out there is Q2 earnings going to be spectacular? Broadcom, nasty 4% right there. Because if it's not, and again, part of the reason Google probably did that 85 billion equity issuance is maybe they think their earnings are not going to be as amazing as it was in Q1, especially because they got the additional income from Anthropic and SpaceX raising at a new round. And maybe they kind of realized, short term, they might have topped. Now, maybe the earnings are just going to be that good and Google's going to 400. But if not, maybe this is going to be a consolidation summer. But it's hard to judge it off one day. Obviously, this week, if we've got a ton of CTA selling pressure, that could be part of the reason why we're down. Netflix, 73.82. Wow. Netflix getting hit. That's ugly, dude. What is ugly? Who's winning the draft? It's got to be Tanner right now. Yep, I'm at third place now. I'm almost red. This thing is going to be changing so quick every day. Steve's down 2. I'm flat. Tanner is down on everything except SMCI, Rubrik, Visa, Coinbase. SMCI, the biggest one, and then VRT. Oh, there it is right there. You can see it. Or stockdraft.com. That's what it's called, stockdraft.com. This is going to be interesting, though. Every day we can take a look at this. Steve is getting hit on everything except MP, TSM, and Uber. Yeah, this is going to be every day seeing. Matt is up on most stuff except Celsius, SoFi, Amazon, ASTS. All right, this is where we're going to have to navigate over the coming years. Or of the coming months for this draft. Keel right here being a champ, dude. Absolute freaking champ. So is CleanSpark, so is Marathon, so is Riot, so is White Fiber. Applied Digital down, Hut 8 is down, and Galaxy's flat. The rest of them are holding on. I don't know. This one is weird price action, dude. It's freaking weird, but nonetheless, it is what is starting off this Monday. Got another headline right here. Goldman Sachs, valuations of AI-related stocks are now high, even relative to our optimistic views regarding the economic value that is likely to be created by AI over the next decade. So it is getting harder to justify further large gains. Very similar to what Bank of America said from Goldman here. Iran's foreign ministry says the Iranian parliament and decisions of the Supreme National Security Council will be interacting with the IAEA. This is the Energy Association to try to monitor their uranium enrichment, which JD said they principally agreed to that. JD did say they principally agreed to that. Let me pull this up right here. And so if that's the case, then maybe, that's also good news on where the negotiations are going to be going.
We made a lot of good progress. We did exactly what we wanted to do, which is accomplish 4 things for the American people. First, we wanted to build a mechanism for keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. It is open. We've seen, of course, gas prices and oil prices come down, millions and millions of barrels of crude and natural gas flowing through the Strait of Hormuz that weren't flowing before. But we also wanted to make sure that we actually set up the coordination mechanism so that we could demine the Straits of Hormuz, so that when there are the conflicts that inevitably come up, we can make sure we work through them rather than that leading to escalation. And that is exactly what we did yesterday. Number two, we also wanted to build a mechanism, a similar mechanism for deconfliction for the regional ceasefire. As the President of the United States has himself said, sometimes these ceasefires just mean you're shooting a little bit less, but we wanted to make sure that we had the proper coordination set up so that if there is shooting, if Hezbollah fires at Israel or if Israel responds, if there are other conflicts that arise in the region, we're actually talking to each other and figuring out how to stop the shooting, how to make the region safer, our allies and everybody else. We set that up as well. Number three, and this is probably what we're most excited about as Americans, the Iranians have agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back into their country. That is a major milestone for the American people and the first step in permanently denuclearizing or permanently ending a nuclear weapons program in Iran. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. That's exactly what we asked to happen. We made a lot of great progress on other nuclear talks. And that leads me to the final thing that we wanted to.
The final thing was him just announcing the ceasefire. At the same time that JD says that Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson, Tehran did not negotiate the nuclear issue and did not accept any new commitments in Sunday's talks in Switzerland. After JD says that they've accepted to work with the IEAA. I mean, this is just, again, it's a lot of back and forth that the market's going to have to try to figure this narrative out for and how it's going to play out. But I mean, oil's down. It's at freaking 73, folks. 73.40. That's the lowest I think it's been in 2 weeks. I don't think we got below 74 last week, considering it was at 90 a month ago. But still, the market is upset about this. Google right there, 343. As we continue to go a bit more red. EC saying I bought some CoreWeave. CoreWeave, where is it at? 109.85. Here's the question. Do we think today is a dip that is a buyable dip, just across the board, like you pick your favorite stocks and you buy them? Or is there a better price this week that we can get? I mean, here's the big catalyst. Let's say Micron ends up dumping, like actually dumping, for whatever reason. Maybe their earnings are good, but let's say it dumps. I wonder if it takes down the semis with it. I mean, you could kind of see that happening, right? That could happen pretty easily, in my opinion. But if it crushes, which I think it will, Penguin losing a lot of its momentum as well, 77 down to 69. Like, I wonder if that just bolts up all the picks and shovels plays that keep going. Wow, Nebby has lost 280 for a second. 299 down to 279 right here. I would love to see a rotation out of memory. I don't know, dude. With the sell side starting to Rocket Lab trying to get back to 100, the sell side is spiking up all these price targets. The average price target now on Micron, I think the institutions are finally catching on, but that also might be, honestly, the moment when you sell. Micron average price target now is 1,200, 1,246, which is only 5% upside from here. But this number was 500 not that long ago. And so the suits have completely started to get on board with the story. And I wonder if that's really the sell signal or if that just means this train continues. Alan Greenspan did pass away today. Rest in peace to him. That news came out early this morning. You know, as a historian of markets, I honestly do not know enough about Alan Greenspan. I would say I know more about Ben Bernanke than him. So he is someone I would have to study up a lot more on. But obviously played a massive role in the Fed and navigated the country through some really tough times. He was 100 years old. But he did pass away this morning. Sell and May going away playing out so far. I don't think sell and May go away even happened. May was a great month for the markets. And I mean, maybe some sectors you could have sold and went away, but May, I mean, realistically, the semis in May, you couldn't have sold, but you could have sold Meta. You could have sold NVIDIA. You definitely could have sold a lot of the Mag 7s, a lot of the fintechs, a lot of the software names. But the semis held up the market, so technically if you sold the market, it was the wrong choice, right? The markets went up. Now, granted, we did hit that 760 level, but we were much lower than that at the start of May. Yeah, it feels like early June had a little bit more of that vibe here. Dude, Netflix, bro. Oh my gosh. As that continues to go down. Bloom also loses all of its pump. It was at 350 in the morning. And then it came right back down. NASDAQ, are we red? Yeah, we've been red for a while now, 736 here. So again, there's not a real headline. It really feels more forced as we've started to see more pain. The SpaceX headline is the biggest thing we've got today. And I don't know if the market really cares that much about it. Where was, okay, June 2nd, where was the market? SPY, June 2nd. Okay, yeah, June 2nd was your top, 758. You took it all the way down to 719. Then we got all the way up to 755 last week. We were pretty freaking close before Warsh started speaking. And now we're at 744. So top of June ended up being the short-term top so far. NVIDIA topped out in May. It hit 240 on May 13th. So, and then it got to 234 on June 2nd. Wow, so June 2nd, it didn't, like NVIDIA didn't, well, technically NVIDIA was 240 in the after hours, so 234 was the, I guess, official all-time high. Yeah, so June 2nd. Now, Micron's defied that logic, right? A lot of these names, SanDisk, are way higher than where they were on June 2nd, but was Apple at 320 on June 2nd? Apple, June 2nd. Yeah, pretty much. Apple was basically 317. Apple topped out June 2nd. Now, it got back there again before WWDC, but still. There's a 3x SpaceX ETF with the ticker Elon. Oh my goodness. Is that actually true? Is that actually true? Are they going to do that? That might get a lot of excitement. Rocket Lab trying to get back up to 100. Can you go over the Google Anthropic stuff? Yeah, so Anthropic signed a deal with Micron today for more memory. Google has not signed a deal with Micron. They have an existing TPU deal with Anthropic, but the reason Google's down, I think, is because SpaceX signed a deal with an open source startup, and that open source startup theoretically could be creating some troubles for Google because of token costs going down, even though it's not actually affecting their business or any of the fundamentals. The perception is that could be affecting it. On top of that, I think part of the reason Anthropic is securing all this compute and memory is because theoretically they want to stop relying on NVIDIA GPUs and Google TPUs and build their own custom silicon. And if that's really what Anthropic's going for, which, I mean, signing an agreement with Micron, like Anthropic doesn't need to do that, right? Broadcom can do that, NVIDIA can do that, Google can do that, and then Anthropic can buy their chips. But Anthropic is, building their own custom ASICs, which they've talked about for a couple of years now, and they're getting serious about it. Maybe that's also theoretically part of the reason Google's down today, as the market is thinking that the TPU business could be not in jeopardy, but a large majority of it might not grow as much as it was before. Palantir 122.85 as that goes down. Amit, if semis take a hit, do they take down the entire market, or do you think SAS gets a bid? I am still trying to figure out why SAS got the bid a couple weeks ago when it did get the bid. and I don't know why. Like Salesforce 200, Palantir 160. It kind of just felt like the narrative was over and the narrative came back. And so if the markets were to fall, I think SaaS would fall pretty badly. It would be hard to see a rotation. Because last time a rotation didn't happen. Remember, everything pumped. The semis were up and SaaS was up. It's not like semis were down, SaaS was up. And so it would be hard to imagine that happens again. Here is Dan Niles this morning on what's going on in the macro.
You can't blow through your entire AI budget in 4 months like Uber did and not have a problem when you report results and then guide. So you've got to figure out how to route this stuff to cheaper models. And the best of those are open source models. And the best of that is coming out of China right now. And so those tokens that you're generating might be 1/8 of the cost in the best cases or so. And so you're seeing an orchestration layer being laid on top of this, where you're saying, okay, for the basic queries, we can send it to these open source models. And for that last 5%, then we'll send it to Fable or Mythos or, ChatGPT to get that stuff done.
So all of this is one of what, 5 emerging risks to the market that you see evolving?
Yeah, I mean, and they've been kind of building for a little bit, but you can see it specifically today, right? So SpaceX is raising $20 billion for a bond offering. So you can add them to the mix of guys that are in this AI race. Obviously, you already had Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Then you added Oracle and Meta. And now you've got SpaceX that's planning on spending a couple of $100 billion to reach their ambitions. And this bond sale is another example, following bond sales from Amazon, a capital raise from Google, how much money these guys need to spend. You look at the 5 that are, public, they're down about 6% year to date. Just today, they're down 3% year to date. And I think this is what's going on. Now, if you look at semis, so where are they spending all this money? They're spending it on chips. That sector is actually up today, while those other 5 I named are down 3.5% that are actually having to get into this AI war, CapEx war. So you want to look at where the money's being spent, not the guys that are spending it and having to raise a bunch of debt or equity to do it. And that's kind of how I'm thinking about the world. And that's why there's probably a speed bump coming when the guidance is given. The quarters should be great because you've got token maximization driving the June quarters. My question is, well, if you're routing things to cheaper models, well, what does your September guidance look like? And that's where I kind of see a speed bump coming when these guys report and guide.
So what are you doing right now?
Well, I mean, late March, it was pretty much a no-brainer to get involved with these names. That's why I put out that note saying, hey, history may not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. What I'm doing right now is I'm backing away from a lot of the hyperscaler type names that we talked about and saying, okay, the chip stuff, that's where they're spending all this money. But even there with, the SOX doubling, I'm just going ahead and trimming back some of that exposure because I think you're going to hear more and more of these stories like what you discussed with Deirdre coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
And investors are just going to have to get a bit more discerning in terms of what they're buying. This is not, March 30th, the stocks are all up a ton, the semi-index has doubled. And, Micron coming up will be an interesting data point around that. I mean, if you go back to last week, Jabil reported numbers are great and the stock finished down for the day. And so I think with Micron, it's been down 5 out of the last 6 times in reaction to earnings. And so it'll be an interesting one to watch to see where we are in that, optimism phase.
Folks, fear and greed. We are at fear at 36. There you go. Fear and greed. We have not really come down from here. I don't know, bro. Today's entire red feels a little exaggerated for no reason, to be honest, on a lot of layers of the stack. But again, I think his argument around, rotation out of semis versus consolidation into semis, that's going to be either proven out or not over the coming months. And, we'll eventually see how the market thinks of it. Yeah, it feels like a fake dump, dude. It feels like a fake dump. Fake dumpy dump. Not be surprised to see this reverse. Not today, but over the coming days right here. Getty Images, that one's still up 114%, 115 million in volume. as that thing has been continuing up. All right, I think that is it for us today. We'll be back on the close. By the way, another update on that Google $75 million deal. A24 and DeepMind plan to build AI tools for movie production. Looks like that's the logic behind the investment, which is what I think most of us thought it would be. It would be an AI partnership. So Google DeepMind will be working with A24 Studios to develop AI-generated storyboard tools. And looks like AI content is part of the route that Google wants to go down. 346, little bounce off 341. Let's see if that can hold. Even Rocket Lab, little bounce. CoreWeave, small bounce off 108. Keel doing great, holding up incredibly well. That's up 15%. And then SPY at 745. Okay, word of the day. Word of the day. Let's see what we got. And then we'll be done here for the day. That is Ashton Kutcher's company. That is correct. Dude, by the way, Giannis looks like he's about to get traded. And I wonder where they're gonna put Giannis. I'm like, ever since the Knicks won the championship, I like care more about the NBA now. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but like legit following NBA news and stuff. All right, word of the day. What do we got? He's not going to New York. They're not going to mess up our chemistry in New York. I don't want LeBron. I don't want Giannis. I'm going to run it back with Brunson here. All right, word of the day is Metonia. I think a profound change of mind, heart, or way of life. His biggest investing gains came after Metonia, from chasing hot tips to following a disciplined process. A profound change of mind, heart, or way of life. Okay, let's see. What does this sound like? Admit, bro, you were rocking like a stockhead during the stock draft. I can't keep still, man. I cannot keep still. You guys don't see my legs. They are shaking throughout the show. All the time. All right, here's how you say this word. Metonia.
Metanoia.
Bro, that is stupid. That's actually, that is, none of you guys thought it was metanoia.
Metanoia.
There's no way in hell anyone thought this was metanoia. That looks like Metonia.
Metanoia.
Metanoia. No. In no world was I thinking this is metanoia. Thank you, Donvin. That's actually stupid. Thank you. That's not me, bro. That is actually not me. Like, legit, that's not me. I remember learning that word in preschool. You did not learn metanoia in preschool, bro. What are you saying, Robert? Learned it in preschool. Metanoia. Meta will annoy you. Yeah, that's. Thank you, Danny. That is actually what this word. Man, can you read? Dude, this is not one of those words you can get on me on. There's no way anyone thought this was metanoia.
Metanoia.
It looked like Metonia. Whatever. That's what we had. That is what we had. All right, we'll be back on market close, couple hours. We'll keep going from there. Again, the schedule for this week, normal day today, normal day tomorrow. Wednesday, going to be gone. Missing Micron earnings. We'll be in a flight. Thursday, we'll be gone. Friday, we'll have our market open. 9:30 a.m. EST is 9 p.m. Singapore time, right? If I'm not wrong. 10 p.m. Okay, so I will be doing the market open at night in Singapore on the 26th, the 29th, and the 30th. So those are going to be the 3 market opens. And then July 1st through 6th, I'll be in Bali. I'll be back on the 6th. And we'll be back to normal starting July 6th. So that is the schedule for this week. We'll have Technical Tuesday tomorrow with Jason as always. And yeah, we'll keep going from there. I also had some really productive conversations. I told you guys, thinking of leveling up the show going into next year. And it's too early to say anything, but I think 2027, we're going to have there's going to be I think there's a way to take the show to the next level just in terms of production quality. And so having some early conversations, had a really good conversation on Saturday. And I think 2027, this could be even cooler. So we're going to see. We're going to see what we can do, but very excited for the rest of the year. Got a lot of stuff we're working on. And yeah, I don't know. I think we can make it even bigger than it is right now as the show grows, just like more cameras, more angles, more production, more set, just like really, really make it a thing. So we're going to see if we can work on that. No guarantees yet, but a lot of stuff to do. A new mic. We will absolutely have a mic that works this time. It would be nice to actually have a couple people on the set to make sure that when everything goes to shit, I'm not left blaming StreamYard for everything, but we're going to see. Side story, I grew up and played basketball in Athens with Giannis. Really? That is crazy. Shout out to ASO Rock. He was at the Chicago meetup. Giannis is incredible. Now, the past couple of years, he hasn't really done much, but I think maybe getting out of Milwaukee will change his trajectory. That's crazy, dude. That's awesome. He's definitely become a massive important player in the league as well. More cameras. How will Steve hide his laptop now? Yeah, we're going to have to see. We're going to have to make sure Steve's laptop is not in the way. Wear a bow tie on the next Basis Points episode. So the next Basis Points will be virtual because I'll be in Singapore. But we might have to do that. We might have to do that. For those that didn't check out Basis Points over the weekend, let me just link it right here. It's a fun one as always in the studio. The studio setup would be metanoia with a bit. I don't know. I'm really liking the idea of having something bigger in New York. And I don't know. We got to see. We got to see if we can pull it off. I've been doing this with just me, my camera, and my laptop for 5 years, just like this. And, I also am a little bored of it. I want to upgrade what this thing looks like. And so I don't know. This idea came to me a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, man. And I started making some phone calls, and I was like, if we could pull that off, it would be really fun to do something serious. And, just upgrade the entire visual experience of it. Even though a lot of you guys listen, to be honest, and just have in the background, but still be fun. Yeah, then the camera's going to be pointing at the leg shaking, and it's going to be used as a market indicator. 100%. All right, there's the Basis Point episode. Thank you again, everyone, for being here. We'll be back on the market close. We'll have Jason on tomorrow. And we'll keep going from there. What are we spamming Steve with? That is a good question. What can we spam Mr. Steven Fiorillo with? Let me pull up his stream right here. I'll put the link in the chat. Can we just get a leg cam? So, well, if we have a full studio, we might be able to do that. Yeah, metanoia. We got to do metanoia. Actually, spamming rainbows is funnier. Let's spam rainbows. Let's do rainbows. That'll be better. Steve will be so confused. Rainbows, baby. Rainbow emojis for Mr. Steve. That's what we got. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be back on the market close. And I'll see you guys in a few hours. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.